The moment I finally decided to throw everything away and vanish from this city without a trace. The girlfriend who once swore she would spend the rest of her life with me was completely clueless. Why? Because at this exact second, she was too busy playing house with her precious, untouchable first love. I stared at the dying candle on the table, slowly closed my eyes, and made a silent wish. Starting today, I am walking away from Seraphina. I am leaving her behind, forever and always. First thing the next morning, my phone buzzed with a call from Human Resources. Secretary Caspian, Boss Seraphina, just signed off on your resignation paperwork. But I am pretty sure she completely missed the part where the person quitting is actually you. Do you want me to poke the bear and remind her? The HR rep's voice crackled through the speaker. I slowly lowered my eyes. No need, I replied softly. Let us just leave it as a fun little surprise. But you have been her secretary for 4 long years. She trusts you the most, and honestly, she literally cannot function without you. About this resignation thing, are you absolutely sure you do not want to rethink it? HR tried to persuade me with the patience of a saint, but I just let out a dry chuckle. There is no such thing as being unable to live without someone in this miserable world. My parents are in poor health, and I am going to be super busy heading back to my hometown for blind dates and settling down to get married. Since Boss Seraphina already rubber-stamped the approval, I will just follow standard procedure and hand over my workload. I will be completely out of here in 1 month. Thanks for all the trouble. After hanging up the phone, I went right back to packing up the things that belonged to me. I had lived in this cold, giant mansion for 3 years. I did not own too much, but apart from the absolute bare essentials, I tossed everything else straight into the garbage. Staring at the bedroom as it slowly emptied out, I completely spaced out for a second. Countless bitter memories came flooding back into my mind like a terrible, endless TV rerun. 8 years ago, I was just a small-town country boy who somehow got accepted into Capital University and magically became best bros with a ridiculously wealthy elite young master named Declan. Our family backgrounds were literally worlds apart, but for some reason, we hit it off ridiculously well. Whether it was heading to class, grabbing a bite, or shooting hoops, we were practically glued together every single day. Gradually, I found myself stepping into his elite social circle, getting to know his family, and inevitably falling hard for his older sister, Seraphina. But I buried that foolish crush deep down in the darkest corner of my soul. Right after graduation, Declan packed his bags and went abroad to study. I chose to stay in the capital city and became Seraphina's secretary. It was all just to have a pathetic excuse to see her face every single day, until that one wildly unpredictable accident happened. Seraphina had been secretly drugged by someone at an event. I was frantically about to dial the hospital, but she suddenly tangled herself around my body like a desperate octopus. Earth-shattering, feverish kisses rained down all over me. After a hazy, chaotic night of tangled sheets, I finally woke up just to see her sitting silently by the window. Her stunning, flawless face was half hidden in the blurry, dim light of the morning, looking completely silent and desperately lonely. Hearing the rustling noise of me waking up, she coldly turned around. You like me, do you not? My knee-jerk reaction was to fiercely deny it, but she just continued staring with an icy, completely flat expression. Every single time you see me, your face blushes red like a tomato. You have memorized every single one of my taboos and personal preferences. You eagerly ran over here to be my personal secretary the exact second you graduated. Do not even try to look me in the eye and tell me that all of this is just some wild coincidence. Word by excruciating word, she ruthlessly exposed my feelings, making my face burn completely and utterly red with absolute embarrassment. Good Lord! In the dead, suffocatingly awkward silence that followed, she suddenly reached out and handed me a premium bank card. We are both adults. We know last night was just a meaningless accident. I already have someone that I truly love. I will never reciprocate your romantic feelings. And I will not force you to take any responsibility for what happened, either. I heard from Declan that your family background is painfully average. The massive amount of money on this card is more than enough for you to live a completely worry-free life. Just take it, and completely forget that any of this ever happened. It was only at that crushing moment that I remembered the painful truth of last night. While we were together, she had kept breathlessly moaning the name Lysander. According to Declan's drunken gossip, Lysander was Seraphina's unforgettable very first love. She loved him so deeply that even though he ruthlessly broke up with her, went abroad, and constantly got caught in endless dirty scandals, she stubbornly insisted on waiting like a loyal puppy for his grand return. At that exact moment, I summoned every single ounce of my pathetic courage to call out to Seraphina, who was already about to walk out the bedroom door. I do not want your dirty money, I pleaded. I just want you to give me one single chance. Seraphina, please, just try being with me for a while. If he never comes back, I swear to God, or if he finally does return. Damn it all. And you still have not moved on from him. On that exact day, I promise I will pack my own bags and walk away without a word. Facing my intense, desperate gaze full of pathetic puppy dog love, Seraphina froze in her tracks for a few agonizing seconds. Then she coldly dropped a dismissive "suit yourself" and walked away without looking back. God, from that incredibly foolish point on, by the light of day, I was nothing more than her highly efficient, strictly professional secretary. But by night, I was her dirty little secret, her private bed warmer. In the office, in the backseat of her luxury Maybach, in the grand mansion, and pressed up against the cold floor-to-ceiling windows, we left messy traces of our ridiculous hidden escapades. Damn it all. 4 agonizing years passed by in a blur like that. Nobody in the world knew about our toxic secret relationship, and I was just a pathetic, love-struck clown, happily suffering through every single second of it. I honestly thought we had something real, right up until her birthday a few days ago. I'd actually planned a massive mountain of romantic surprises for her. But after waiting alone in the dark until midnight, she never showed up. Instead, I was hit with a notification from her social media. Seraphina, a woman who had literally never posted a personal update in her entire life, suddenly dropped a photo of her locking lips with Lysander under a sky bursting with fireworks. Seeing that picture, every single drop of blood drained straight from my face. My chest tightened into a suffocating, agonizing knot. Clinging to my absolute last, pathetic shred of hope, I dialed her number. But the guy who picked up was Lysander. Hello? Who's this Caspian guy? You call, but you don't even say a damn word. A second later, her cool, crystal clear, and utterly dismissive voice drifted over the line. Just some irrelevant nobody. Don't pay him any mind. Let's sleep a little longer. At that exact moment, it finally hit me. It was officially time for me to exit stage left. I packed up my emotional baggage and got ready to walk away for good. But of course, I bumped right into Seraphina at the doorway. Seeing me holding a pathetic little cardboard box of my stuff, her eyes narrowed just a fraction, but she made absolutely zero effort to ask me to stay. Did you find a place yet? She asked flatly. Yeah. Just that same old cramped apartment I used to rent. I already talked to the landlord. I'm renting it for 1 month. Hearing this, Seraphina frowned slightly. 1 month? Why? I was just about to explain, but honestly, she looked like she couldn't care less. I'll give you a ride, she demanded in a low voice. I wanted to say no, but Seraphina was being weirdly stubborn about it. The snow is too heavy, and it's way too late. If something happens to you, Declan will be sad. I had zero choice but to get into her car. Once upon a time, we had done countless wild, absurd things in this exact vehicle. But right now, I could barely even recognize the interior. The dashboard was littered with all sorts of toy sports cars. The back seat was stuffed with fluffy blankets and completely ruined by some flashy, chaotic LED mood lighting. I couldn't even fathom how someone as ruthlessly efficient, ice-cold, and strict as her would let her car turn into this absolute circus. Catching me staring, Seraphina casually explained, Lysander likes this kind of stuff. I understood completely. After a painfully long silence, I finally muttered in a low, defeated voice, You finally got him back, Boss Seraphina. I am genuinely happy for you. Seraphina clearly didn't expect me to say something so mature and detached. Her eyes instantly darkened a shade, but she didn't say another word. Halfway through the painfully awkward drive, Lysander called her. He was whining like a kid, saying he wanted to build a snowman with her. Without hesitating, she immediately pulled over to the side of the road. You could tell she was ready to literally teleport to him right then and there. But glancing over at me sitting next to her, she actually hesitated. I knew exactly what was making her feel so painfully awkward. So, I took the initiative and yanked the car door open myself. Boss Seraphina, I'll just catch a cab from here. Seraphina let out a brief, cold, and got out to help me move my box. Of course, my hands just had to slip. The box crashed hard onto the freezing ground, spilling everything. She bent down, and under the dim streetlights, she got a front-row seat to the tragic mess scattered on the snow. Unsent love letters with her name scrawled all over them. Slightly creepy but sweet candid photos I'd secretly snapped of her, and random little trinkets she had casually thrown away that I had hoarded like a pathetic goblin. My heart practically did a terrified backflip out of my chest. I scrambled in a frantic, humiliating panic to scoop everything back up. Sorry, I choked out. Seraphina said absolutely nothing. She just got back into the car, slammed her foot on the gas, and sped away like a bat out of hell. I stood alone in the freezing snow waiting for an absolute eternity, but I couldn't flag down a single damn cab. I finally decided to just hug my box of shame and walk all the way home, only to get dramatically blindsided by a rogue electric scooter. An 8-inch gash was sliced right across my calf. Hot blood spilled out, staining the pristine white snow. Watching the hit-and-run driver zoom off into the distance, I inhaled sharply through the agonizing, searing pain. I just lay there in the freezing snow for a good long while before I could even breathe properly. Once the blinding pain finally numbed down to a dull ache, I limped like a half-dead zombie for 4 solid hours, eventually dragging my broken body back to my cramped rental apartment. After awkwardly patching up my bleeding wound, I opened my phone, only to find a text Seraphina had sent after leaving me in the dust. In the future, don't be so blindly dead set on liking one single person. There are plenty of women in this world. Don't waste your life hanging on to me. I stared at that cold, heartless message for a very, very long time. When dawn finally broke, I dragged myself downstairs, flicked my lighter, and burned that entire box of pathetic memories down to crisp, gray ashes. And just like that, the burning, obsessive love I had secretly harbored in my chest for 8 long years went up in a puff of smoke. Seraphina, I'll do exactly as you wish. I took it easy and rested for 2 days over the weekend. Come Monday, I showed up to the company like clockwork. I handled my daily tasks with my usual, cold, robotic precision. Later, I went to notify Seraphina that her meeting was about to start. But as I walked up to her office and peeked through the slightly ajar door, I saw Lysander. He was cuddling Seraphina right there in his arms, feeding her a half-bitten cookie he had literally just gnawed on. Get this. This woman, who was famously known for her severe germophobia, was actually smiling, eating it, and even intimately kissing his fingers. You kept nagging yesterday about wanting to eat pastries from this specific shop. I deliberately stood in line for 3 hours this morning just to buy them for you. How does it taste? It tastes amazing. Just as sweet and perfectly balanced as before. In the past, you used to run super far every few days just to buy them for me. Now that you're a literal corporate CEO, why are you still going yourself? Just order your secretary to do it. Duh. Seraphina gently stroked his cheek, the absolute affection in her eyes practically overflowing like a broken dam. Anything related to you, I only want to do it myself. I don't want to pass it through someone else's hands. Hearing that, a deeply smug smile bloomed right on Lysander's face. He immediately took the initiative, wrapping his arms around her waist and pulling her in for a kiss. She hugged him right back, eagerly deepening the kiss, completely intoxicated in the moment. Watching this live-action romance movie unfold right in front of me, my breathing hitched. A sickening wave of sour bitterness spread through my chest. I clenched my fingers together so hard, my knuckles turned paper white. The skin on my palms turned into a raw, bloody mess from my own digging nails. Time painfully ticked by, second by second. Seeing that the crucial meeting time was fast approaching, I forcefully shoved my chaotic emotions back into their little box. I raised a shaky hand and politely knocked on the door. Boss Seraphina. The meeting is starting immediately. Hearing my sudden voice, Seraphina paused slightly. She was just about to stand up when Lysander aggressively yanked her back down. I don't want you to go. Stay with me just a little longer. Seraphina's icy heart practically melted into a puddle on the spot. Push the meeting back by 2 hours. I froze. The project being discussed in this meeting involved a mega collaboration between several top-tier conglomerates in Capital City. It was literally a life-or-death deal that would completely dictate the company's future. I knew exactly how insanely high the stakes were, so I couldn't resist dropping a gentle, urgent reminder. But the CEOs from the Lin Group, the Gu Group, and the Shen Group are all literally sitting in the conference room waiting right now. Seraphina, your secretary is such an annoying buzzkill. He has absolutely zero ability to read the room. Hearing Lysander's whiny complaint, Seraphina's face instantly turned ice cold toward me. I said, push it back by 2 hours. No amount of work is more important than Lysander. My chest felt so suffocatingly tight, to the point where I could barely even catch a breath. But in the end, I simply closed the door and silently turned away. Literally everyone in our corporate circle knew that Seraphina was a certified, hardcore workaholic. No matter how utterly chaotic her personal life was, even right after walking out of a major surgery, she would drag her sick body just to finish her paperwork. Yet now, just for a man, she was fully willing to risk offending her biggest business partners just to delay such a crucial, high-stakes meeting. This was a historical first. Did she honestly love Lysander that insanely much? I slowly lowered my dull, lifeless eyes, violently shoved my broken feelings down, and walked straight into the conference room to deliver the terrible news to the board. Because the Liu family business was such a colossal empire, this entire pack of powerful CEOs, despite being incredibly annoyed, absolutely didn't dare badmouth Seraphina directly. So, they conveniently unleashed all their boiling wrath onto me as the ultimate corporate punching bag. I didn't dare talk back, or defend myself. I could only bow my head and take the vicious verbal beating like a total champ. I forcefully endured the humiliation for 2 grueling hours until Seraphina finally decided to grace us with her holy presence. I dragged my sore, numb legs out of the conference room, only to be instantly summoned by Lysander all over again. So, you're Caspian. I heard from Seraphina that you make a seriously mean cup of coffee. I see everyone in the office is looking a little bit tired. Why don't you go ahead and brew a cup for everyone here? Oh, and my order, iced, with absolutely no sugar. I knew he was just relying on Seraphina's blatant favoritism to boss me around like some petty tyrant, and I definitely didn't dare defy him. I had absolutely no choice but to head straight to the pantry. It took me 2 solid hours to brew over 400 cups of coffee. I carried them out tray by exhausted tray, but Lysander took just 1 tiny sip of the first cup, and his face instantly mutated. He grabbed the heavy mug and hurled it violently right at my head. Bam! The rock-hard ceramic mug bashed directly into my forehead, carving out a sickening bloody hole. It looked terrifyingly gruesome. I let out a painful, muffled groan, my entire face scrunching up in absolute agony as I clutched my bleeding head and collapsed onto the cold floor. But Lysander still hadn't vented nearly enough of his twisted diva rage. He grabbed cup after cup of scalding coffee and relentlessly pelted them right at my defenseless body. I was beaten to a pulp, left covered in ugly black and blue bruises. Shattered ceramic shards sliced deep, bloody tracks into my skin, while dark, lukewarm coffee drenched me from head to toe. Mixed with my own dark red blood, it went drip, drip, drip onto the floorboards. All I could do was curl up like a pathetic loser, desperately trying to shield my head and my chest. The entire office was dead silent. Not a single soul had the guts to step up and stop this madness. Everyone just hid as far away as humanly possible, watching Prince Lysander throw his little royal tantrum. Obviously, a massive commotion like this quickly lured boss Seraphina out of her office. She stared at the absolute battlefield of a room, then looked down at my battered, bleeding body on the floor. Her eyebrows locked into a furious frown. What happened? The second he saw her, Lysander instantly flipped the script, playing the poor, innocent victim. Seraphina, I just asked your secretary for a cup of coffee. He knows my stomach hurts, yet he maliciously dumped ice cubes into my cup on purpose. My stomach is cramping so badly. Watching his teary-eyed, theatrical Oscar-worthy performance, Seraphina's expression morphed into dark, threatening storm clouds. You've worked under me for 4 years, and you can't even handle a simple task like this? Or do you just have a petty, personal vendetta against Lysander? Are you purposely targeting him? I lifted my pathetic, ghost-white face, desperately trying to explain myself. But she completely shut me down, revoking my right to even speak. She directly barked cold orders at her assistant. Caspian has violated company regulations. Deduct this month's salary and his quarterly bonus. Issue a company-wide disciplinary notice, and make him read a public apology at next week's General Assembly. After dropping that absolute bomb on me, Seraphina gently supported her precious Lysander, and walked away without looking back. Watching her figure fade into the distance, the bitter tears I had been holding back for way too long finally spilled down my cheeks. I forced my broken body to stand up. Enduring the stabbing pain, I grabbed a broom and a mop, and started cleaning up a floor completely covered in broken mugs and spilled coffee. A few kind-hearted coworkers sneaked over to help me out. They looked at me with eyes full of sheer pity. I literally heard that spoiled young master specify iced, no sugar. How could he just lie and blame you? Caspian, did you offend him somehow? Wait, does that guy even need a reason to snap? I've heard from tons of people that he's just ridiculously arrogant and bossy. The absolute second he's mildly inconvenienced, he throws a massive fit. Honestly, half of high society can't stand the guy. But because boss Seraphina spoils him rotten, literally no one dares to cross him. Ugh, I have never seen boss Seraphina simp this hard for a guy before. Caspian, just watch your back from now on. We're just average workers. We can't compete with these crazy, rich, entitled young masters. Plus, he's got boss Seraphina backing him up like an absolute final boss. Even if you suffer real injustice, you just have to swallow it and be his punching bag. I knew they meant well, but hearing those words, a chaotic hurricane of emotions, absolutely wrecked me. I couldn't utter a single syllable. See, back in the day, a huge contract I was handling hit a major snag. It was entirely the client company's fault, but they maliciously pinned the whole disaster right onto my head. Facing their aggressive backlash and pressure, Seraphina believed in me with zero hesitation, knowing damn well it wasn't my fault. She fought tooth and nail, aggressively arguing on my behalf, and finally cleared my name completely. But right now, Lysander casually spits out a blatant lie, and she doesn't even bother to fact-check a single word of it. She didn't even give me a chance to defend myself, just mercilessly dumping all the blame right onto my shoulders. I had slaved away, working my tail off for her, cleaning up so many of her messes, and at the end of the day, I couldn't even earn a tiny fraction of her trust. Or maybe, deep down in her heart, who is right and who is wrong doesn't matter at all. She only cares about keeping her precious Lysander entertained. Thinking of this, my heart felt impossibly heavy, stinging with a relentless, suffocating pain. It took me a ridiculously long time to clean up that disaster zone. Dragging my exhausted, hollow shell of a body, I finally went back home. But right after I washed up, Seraphina's phone call buzzed again. Bring over some stomach medicine and heating pads. Right now. I packed everything up with lightning speed and delivered them straight to her mega mansion. I hadn't been here for a mere 2 or 3 days, but the minimalist, elegant mansion I remembered had basically undergone extreme plastic surgery. The beautiful peach tree that old Mr. Liu planted with his very own hands was completely uprooted. It was replaced by an entire garden of aggressively vibrant tulips. The chic, black and white furniture inside was all swapped out for the pastel pink and yellow tones that Seraphina used to absolutely despise. The display cabinets were utterly stuffed with endless jewelry, luxury car keys, and incredibly lavish gifts. One look, and you knew this was 100% Lysander's painfully tacky aesthetic. I silently absorbed the heartbreaking sight of it all. I slowly walked up to the brightly lit bedroom, took a deep breath, and raised my hand to knock. A second later, Seraphina shoved the door open and snatched the items right out of my hands. It was only then that she finally bothered to look up and actually notice my face. Without the coffee stains covering it, the gaping wound on my cheek looked absolutely horrifying. She actually froze for a split second. "You're hurt this badly? Did you go to the hospital to get it looked at?" I just stood there in dead silence and shook my head. She rubbed her temples, and for once, her cold tone actually softened. Lysander was just feeling sick. He wasn't purposely trying to use you as his personal punching bag. Don't take it personally. That pay I docked from you, I'll quietly add it back to your year-end bonus. Just go to the doctor and get patched up later. If it's bad, take a few days off. Consider your sick leave already approved. Don't even bother with the HR portal. I've got it. I opened my mouth, ready to tell her I was quitting this absolute circus at the end of the month, but she cut me off. She shoved a shiny premium bank card straight into my chest, completely shutting me down. "Be a good boy. I still need your help organizing a massive welcome home banquet for Lysander. Go get some rest and heal up." Every single word I wanted to say was violently shoved right back down my throat. I let out a numb, "Fine." I took the card and walked out. The exact millisecond the door clicked shut, I heard that guy's pathetic, whiny voice, echoing from inside. "Seraphina, is my stomach medicine still not here? Come warm my stomach with your hands. I'm coming right now. Just lie down and stop squirming." Hearing her sickeningly sweet, gentle tone, I let out a silent, hollow laugh. My eyes were brimming with pure, bitter self-mockery. After dragging myself away from the mansion, I hit up the hospital and got my face stitched up. I rotted at home for a couple of days until her assistant forwarded me the banquet proposal. From the exact breed of flowers to the ridiculous dessert menu, right down to the custom stitching on the waiters' uniforms, her demands were obnoxiously strict. I only had 3 days to pull this impossible event off. I had zero choice but to drag myself out of bed and get to work. After hustling like a total maniac, the banquet officially kicked off right on schedule at 7 p.m. Lysander was decked out in a ridiculously flashy haute couture suit, making his grand, spotlight-stealing entrance. The elite guests immediately swarmed him like a bunch of flies, showering him in fake, sickening praises. It's been years, but young Master Lysander is still as gorgeous and wealthy as ever. You are absolutely glowing. Even a casual welcome back party is this extravagant. Looks like Boss Seraphina's love for you hasn't faded one single bit. I totally remember back in high school, someone tried to confess their feelings to Lysander. The second boss Seraphina found out, she literally bullied that kid into transferring schools. Every single love letter he ever got, she read it and shredded it to pieces. A few guys dared to gossip about Lysander behind his back. She hunted those punks down and beat them until their bones snapped. Who in our elite circle doesn't know that Lysander is Boss Seraphina's holy first love? He's the absolute apple of her eye. Just look at that jewelry set he's wearing. That's easily worth tens of millions, right? And that suit is a one-of-a-kind, global exclusive. Just to make her precious Lysander smile, Boss Seraphina couldn't care less about the price tag. I just stood there in the shadows, silently listening to this pathetic podcast of praises. Suddenly, Lysander strutted over to me like a triumphant, arrogant peacock. He glared down at me, his eyes dripping with absolute disgust. You set this party up decently enough, but there is one tiny little problem. There's no carpet in the lobby. My incredibly expensive shoes got a little dusty. To make up for this catastrophic failure, you are going to get down on your knees and wipe them clean for me. I kept my head bowed, my tone completely flat and unbothered. Please wait a moment. There are extra carpets backstage. I'll have someone roll them out right now. Seeing that I actually had the guts to refuse his petty little demand, Lysander's face instantly twisted into a furious scowl. Of course, Seraphina just magically happened to walk in at that exact moment. Seeing her precious prince looking upset, she rushed right over. What's wrong? Seraphina, I didn't want to get my shoes dirty, so I asked your secretary to wipe them, but he absolutely refused me. Is he still holding a grudge against me for what happened the other day? Hearing his dramatic whining victim act, Seraphina shot me a dark, heavy glare. It's just wiping a shoe. That falls perfectly under your job description anyway. It's not your first day playing secretary. I can't believe you can't even handle a trivial task like this. The surrounding guests immediately started buzzing like malicious bees, throwing out toxic, passive-aggressive snark. The very last shred of light in my eyes completely died out. I violently choked down the overwhelming humiliation, bent all the way over, and used my own sleeve to wipe the dust off his stupid, overpriced shoes. Pleased with himself, Lysander then dragged Seraphina around the venue, parading up and down the stairs just to purposely torture me, knowing full well his custom shoes were made of highly sensitive material. With every few steps, they tracked in more dirt, and my lower back was bent until it screamed in absolute agony. I could only grit my teeth and endure the humiliation, but that pampered brat Lysander wasn't about to let me off the hook. He snapped at a waiter to bring over a massive tray of hard liquor, then crooked his finger at me like I was a stray dog. I'm not in the mood to drink today, he sneered. But since my lovely friends did me the honor of showing up, it'd be rude to completely decline. So, you are going to drink all of this on my behalf. I'm highly allergic to alcohol, I choked out. I barely got the warning out before Lysander immediately started whining to his sugar mommy girlfriend. My boss, Seraphina, knew full well that alcohol could literally kill me, but just to appease her spoiled little prince, she actually sided with him. Don't you carry your allergy meds on you at all times? Just pop a few pills after you finish drinking. You should be totally fine. Her cold, completely non-negotiable demand sent my heart plunging straight into an icy abyss. The blood drained from my face. Before I could blink, swarms of pretentious guests stepped up with their glasses to offer totally fake, mocking toasts. Trapped, I picked up glass after glass, pouring the burning liquid straight down my throat. I silently pulled out my medication and dry swallowed a few pills. But very quickly, the merciless herd of guests came rushing back for round 2. I just kept picking up the glasses, chugging the fire down my blistering throat while my stomach did aggressive, violent backflips. I fought back the desperate urge to throw up right there. My brain felt incredibly heavy and muddled, like my skull was stuffed with wet cement. My vision blurred into a messy, swirling smear. Right in the middle of a dizzying, world-spinning spell, I suddenly heard Lysander let out a loud, obnoxious screech. Seraphina! The designer cufflink you gave me is completely gone. Just now, only this sketchy secretary of yours got close to me. He definitely has sticky fingers and stole my jewelry. Hearing this completely baseless, fabricated slander actually shocked a tiny shred of sobriety back into me. Boss Seraphina, it wasn't me. Seraphina looked at Lysander's fake, red, teary eyes, and then glanced over at me completely wasted and an absolute mess. Her expression instantly turned grim. There are way too many people, and too much chaos in here. Maybe it just fell off. Let's search the area first. But Lysander was relentlessly, brutally annoying. He violently shook off her hand. If it wasn't him, who else could it possibly be? Because it was a special gift from you. That's exactly why I'm panicking so much. And yet you still want to cover for this loser. Since you refuse to search his body, then don't you ever come looking for me again. Saying this, he threw a massive, dramatic tantrum and tried to storm off. Seraphina frantically grabbed him by the arm to pull him back and then coldly summoned her personal bodyguards. The very next second, several massive bodyguards tackled me, pinning me aggressively to the floor. They started viciously ripping at my clothes as a booming noise exploded in my brain. I struggled wildly, fighting back with everything I had, but I couldn't outmuscle these giant brutes. My dress shirt was shredded into ragged strips. My shoes were yanked off. My skin was scratched and clawed mercilessly until it was bruised red and actively bleeding. An endless, suffocating wave of humiliation surged straight into my chest. I couldn't hold back my desperate cries. I didn't do it. It really wasn't me. But my pathetic wailing only earned me even rougher, more violently abusive treatment. Seraphina finally turned her head, unable to bear watching the ugly scene anymore. Just as she was opening her mouth to call it off, a few waiters sprinted over in a panic. "We found it! The cufflink just fell on the stairs." In a split second, the gaze of the entire banquet hall locked onto the waiter's hands, staring dead at that dazzling, obnoxiously shiny diamond cufflink. Seraphina's tightly knitted brow finally relaxed just a tiny fraction. She waved her hand, signaling her mountain of gorillas to back off. Then, she picked up the jewelry herself and personally attached it back onto Lysander's sleeve. Her tone softened significantly, treating him like a baby. "See? We found the item. Stop being so angry now, okay?" Lysander finally nodded in sheer, arrogant satisfaction. He looked down at me trembling on the floor like a humiliated stray dog and smugly wrapped his arm around her shoulder. "Thank goodness we found it. Otherwise my heart would have been broken for ages. But oh no, your poor secretary suffered such a massive injustice because of this tiny little misunderstanding. Should I stoop down and apologize to him?" In a blinding flash, every single eyeball in the entire room shifted right back to my bruised, half-naked body. Under the crushing weight of endless, suffocating agony, I heard Seraphina's chillingly indifferent voice. "No need to apologize, he's merely a secretary. Suffering a little grievance is no big deal." That one simple, devastatingly casual sentence stabbed straight into my chest like a butcher's blade, mangling my insides into a bloody mess. That devoted heart of mine, which was already completely riddled with bullet holes, felt like it was being brutally ripped apart at the seams. The intense pain actually made me wish I was dead. My brain was buzzing wildly with white noise. In my eyes, there was only a vast void of numb, hollow emptiness. I didn't even realize when the massive banquet hall had finally emptied out. Only the blindingly harsh overhead lights remained, highlighting every single purple bruise and bloody scratch on my broken body with perfect clarity. Swallowing the bitter pain, I slowly crawled up from the freezing floor, picked up a spare jacket some kind waiter had left behind, and wrapped it around myself. I stumbled and staggered like a ghost as I fled that absolute cursed hellhole. Outside, a vicious, torrential downpour was raging, washing away everything I used to be. I stepped out into the raging storm, completely numb to the world. The freezing rain slapped harshly against my face, sliding down drop by drop, looking exactly like tears. But honestly, I didn't have a single drop of real tears left to cry. I had absolutely no idea where I was going, just wandering aimlessly through the cold city streets like an empty ghost. Not long after, a sleek car pulled up right next to me. The window rolled down, revealing Seraphina's aloof, stunningly bright face. "Get in the car." I acted like I was completely deaf, dragging my heavy, cement-like body. I just struggled to keep walking in the pouring rain. Seraphina frowned, her voice escalated a notch. "Get in the car." I halted my steps, lifted my ghost-pale, bloodless face, and stared directly at her. "No need to trouble yourself with my existence, Boss Seraphina. I am merely a secretary." My tone was as freezing as an Arctic glacier. It made Seraphina's heart violently flinch. She threw open the car door, braved the pouring rain, walked right up to me, and forcefully grabbed my wrist. What happened tonight was my failure to handle things properly, but I have already lost Lysander once before. I absolutely cannot lose him this second time. The humiliation you suffered today, I will find a way to completely overcompensate you for it. Please, do not throw a tantrum and hold this against me. This time, I did not compromise anymore. I used every last drop of energy in my body to violently shake off her iron grip. I took a few steps back. My voice sounded like a stagnant pool of dead water. "Boss Seraphina must be joking. How could an average peasant like me ever dare to throw a tantrum against nobles like you and young Master Lysander? In the past, I was far too naive, far too ridiculous. That's why I couldn't see my own lowly status clearly. From this exact second onwards, I will constantly remind myself that I am merely a secretary. I will absolutely never intrude upon your personal life again. Are you satisfied now? Can you finally let me leave in peace?" The more I spoke like this, the angrier Seraphina got. Her face turned into a block of ice. Her emotions were already completely out of control. "You know perfectly well I didn't mean it like that. I have never, ever looked down on you. I only said those words back there to pacify Lysander. In my heart, you and Declan are." Whatever excuse she spewed after that, I didn't hear a single word of it. The world in front of my eyes was rapidly blurring. My eyelids felt like they were dragged down by lead weights. Every ounce of strength in my body was completely drained. My body tilted sideways, and I completely lost consciousness. I have absolutely no idea how much time passed. When I finally forced my heavy eyes open again, I found myself lying in a sterile hospital bed. My soaking wet clothes had been swapped out. Medicine and hot water sat neatly on the bedside table. A nurse was adjusting my IV drip. Seeing me wake up, she flashed a friendly, warm smile. "You're awake. Your girlfriend stayed by your side all night last night. She just left a second ago." I opened my dry, cracked lips. My voice was raw and hoarse. "She is not my girlfriend. She never was. Seraphina and I, from the very beginning, were just a chaotic accident. Aside from my official title as her secretary, she had never acknowledged any other relationship between us. In the past, I delusionally fantasized about our future together. Right now, I just want to slap some sense into my own brain. I need to get away from her. Permanently. I stayed in the hospital for a few days. Seraphina never showed her face once. She just ordered her assistant to text me, telling me to rest in peace. Well, recover in peace, and only come back to work when I was fully healed. Once my body was patched up, I got discharged. During that time, the company group chat was absolutely popping off. Everyone was gossiping about Seraphina and Lysander. She rented out the entire Disneyland for one whole week just to celebrate his birthday. The fireworks show burned nonstop for 3 straight days. She even brought him to the elite family banquets. She handed over a family heirloom jade pendant, traditionally reserved only for the son-in-law, straight to him. She bought a massive plot of land to build a private ski resort and named it after Lysander. I scrolled through these messages, and my heart didn't feel a single ripple. After being discharged, I went back to work like a good corporate drone. I handled my tasks with flawless perfection. If a task required dealing directly with Seraphina, I just dumped it onto my other coworkers. After a blissfully quiet week, Seraphina finally called me into her office. I dropped off a document and was about to sprint away, but she called me out. "I have to go to a meeting. Lysander hates eating alone. You stay here and keep him company." My face instantly stiffened. I was just about to reject the offer, but Lysander beat me to the punch. "I want to eat shrimp. You peel a plate for me first." Seraphina shut the office door behind her. I had absolutely no choice but to drag myself to the dining table. After peeling a massive mountain of shrimp, Lysander ordered someone to bring over a huge pile of walnuts and a whole jackfruit. I suddenly craved some post-meal fruit. "Oh, we don't have any tools here. You'll just have to use your bare hands." Staring at the rock-hard walnut shells and the razor-sharp armor of the jackfruit, my stomach completely dropped. I knew Lysander was doing this purely to torture me, but I had no choice but to obey. After desperately prying open the walnuts and ripping the jackfruit apart, my hands were left a bloody, mangled mess. But of course, Lysander still wasn't letting me off the hook. He dragged me into the kitchen and forced me to carry out a bowl of boiling hot soup. The bubbling, freshly made soup instantly scalded my torn hands until they were beet red. The pain was absolutely blinding, and I just couldn't hold on. My grip slipped. The boiling broth splashed all over my body, sending up clouds of scalding steam. Within seconds, massive, agonizing blisters bubbled up across my skin. The burning agony was totally unbearable. I bit down on my lip until it bled, just to hold back my pathetic groans of pain. Seeing me collapse to the floor, Lysander started laughing his head off. But the very next second, the office door swung open. Instantly, he wiped that sick, evil smirk off his face and faked a gasp. "I kept hearing Seraphina brag about how capable you are. How could you fail to carry a simple bowl of soup and spill it everywhere? You even burned my hand." Seraphina instantly went into full panic mode. She sprinted over, completely frantic. "Where did it burn you? Quick, let me see. Oh my God. Does it hurt?" Lysander pitifully lifted his hand, which he had purposely pinched to make it look red. It just splashed a few tiny drops on me," he whimpered. "I don't know if it's going to leave an ugly scar." Seraphina immediately snapped at me. "How exactly do you do your job? Lysander has been pampered his entire life. He has never suffered a single injury. I merely asked you to bring a bowl of soup, and you end up burning him. Do you not know how to stand further away?" Seraphina's face was completely dark, with absolute rage. She kept aggressively scolding me. But when her eyes finally landed on the horrific, blistering burns covering my body, she swallowed hard, unable to bring herself to say anything harsher. Instead, she just grabbed Lysander and dragged him off to treat his fake little injury. Right before walking out the door, she glanced back at me, still frozen on the floor, and barked a cold command. "Follow us to the hospital. We'll get your injuries treated together." Enduring the excruciating pain, I dragged my battered body and crawled into the car. On the road, Seraphina drove like a total maniac. Lysander kept making these exaggerated whining noises every few seconds, and her heart was practically bleeding with worry. She kept frantically turning her head to check on him, totally ignoring the road. Because her attention was completely scattered, she entirely missed the sports car speeding aggressively right toward us. Bang! The two cars collided violently in a deafening crash. Under the massive force of the impact, my body was slammed brutally against the car door. My internal organs felt like they had been violently thrown into a blender. Blood gushed out of me, dyeing my entire world a terrifying crimson red. My body convulsed uncontrollably. I forced my heavy eyelids open just a crack, only to see Seraphina desperately dragging Lysander out of the wrecked car. The sharp wail of an ambulance siren echoed from the distance. In my fading, blurry consciousness, I heard the frantic voices of the paramedics yelling, "Ma'am, this gentleman here just passed out from a panic attack, but the passenger in the back seat is hemorrhaging massively. He is critically injured. If we don't rush him to the hospital immediately, his life is in severe danger." But Seraphina screamed back, "No, you must transport Lysander to the hospital first. I absolutely cannot let anything happen to him. Nothing else in this world is more important than his safety." Her desperate, panicked scream for another man became the very last sound I heard before slipping into absolute darkness. The endless, suffocating void swallowed me whole. It felt like I was trapped in a horrifyingly long nightmare. When I finally woke up from the dream, I opened my heavy eyes and saw my best bro, Declan. His eyes were completely bloodshot. "Caspian, man. The second I landed back in the country, I heard you got into a crazy accident. The doctor said you hemorrhaged so badly, they almost couldn't bring you back." I was scared to death, bro. Seeing his familiar face, all the bitter emotions I had shoved deep down finally erupted. I couldn't stop my own eyes from turning red. "Don't worry, I'm okay." We just stared at each other in emotional silence for a long time. Taking a breath, Declan poured a glass of water and carefully helped me drink it. Remembering the doctor's strict orders to keep things light, he smoothly switched to happier topics. "So, have you been having fun living here these past few years? Did my psycho sister bully you? And wait, weren't you dating some girl? When are you going to introduce her to me? I need to do a thorough background check, man. If she doesn't treat you like an absolute king, I strictly forbid you two from being together." My facial muscles completely froze at the mention of his sister. Boss Seraphina keeps business strictly separate from her personal life. She hasn't bullied me. And as for the girlfriend, we already broke up. Declan clearly didn't expect to hear about a breakup so fast. Afraid that I was secretly heartbroken, he frantically tried to comfort me. "Hey, it's totally fine. As the old saying goes, say bye to the old trash, and the next one will be a total catch. Well, cuter. Anyway, I know a ton of gorgeous women. I'll introduce every single one of them to you." But before his sentence even hit the floor, the hospital room door was violently shoved open. Seraphina stormed in, her face looking like an absolute thundercloud. "Introduce who?" she snapped. "Absolutely not. Those women you know are all total players. Not a single one of them is good enough for him." Hearing her fiercely veto the idea, Declan instantly fired right back. "What do you mean, total players? Sis, stop talking garbage, okay? He's only dated like 2 or 3 girls, max. You think everyone is as deeply devoted as you? Hanging yourself from Lysander's one pathetic little tree forever? I'm introducing a girlfriend to my own bro. Sis, why are you trying to micromanage this too?" Hearing his brutally honest words, the flames of rage instantly ignited in Seraphina's chest. Her tone was laced with furious, burning anger. I said, "No introductions means no introductions. Matters of the heart cannot be forced. Stop trying to play matchmaker. Yeah, matters of the heart truly cannot be forced." I laughed soundlessly to myself. I lightly tugged on Declan's sleeve and looked right at her with pure, chilling calmness. Declan was just making a joke. "Boss Seraphina, did you come here for a specific reason?" Seeing me alive and perfectly intact, Seraphina noticeably let out a heavy breath of relief. Her first instinct was to say she came to check on me, but the exact moment the words reached her lips, she aggressively pivoted. "Nothing major. Declan heard you got into an accident and rushed straight to the hospital from the airport. I just came over to drag him back home. Checking on you was just a convenient detour." All right, sis," Declan sighed. "I will come home tonight. You can leave now. Caspian suffered such a catastrophic injury. You are strictly forbidden from dumping any more work on him." After Declan finished his rant, he basically shooed his sister right out the door. With only the 2 bros left in the room, Declan started defending his sister again. "Don't mind my sister acting all fierce. She actually treats you really well. The nurses told me that yesterday, when you were hanging by a thread, she mobilized the entire city's blood banks just to save your life." Hearing this, I totally blanked out for a second. But a moment later, brutal clarity returned. She only mobilized the whole city's blood banks simply because she didn't want me to literally die on her watch. But if it ever came down to a literal life or death choice between me and Lysander, and only one could survive, the one who died would 100% be me. So, when it came to her, I had absolutely zero delusions left. For my final few days in the capital city, I stayed entirely in the hospital to quietly recover. During rounds, the nurses would casually gossip about the VIP ward upstairs. Rumor had it, the CEO of the Lu Group rented out the entire floor. She even dragged several retired top-tier medical professors back to work just to cater to her precious little boyfriend. I've seen it so many times. Boss Seraphina personally serves her boyfriend tea and water. She bought him a mountain of gifts just to make him smile. She stays up all night guarding his bedside. That is literally true love. I silently listened to all this juicy gossip. I slowly raised my hand and touched my chest. There was absolutely zero feeling left in there. It was just beating a little slower than usual. It seemed like the massive, gaping wound in my heart was finally close to fully healing. On the day of my discharge, Declan had planned to come pick me up, but got completely tangled up in some messy family drama. I reassured him it was totally fine, left the hospital by myself, and headed straight back to the company. Today was officially my very last day of employment. I breezed right through the standard HR exit protocol. I was holding my little cardboard box, ready to vanish forever, when I unfortunately bumped into Lysander right by the elevators. Lysander was holding a cup of coffee. He very deliberately body-checked me hard. "Do you walk without your eyes open? You got my extremely expensive clothes all dirty. Time and time again you're doing this on purpose, aren't you?" Lysander directed and starred in his own little soap opera. Then he turned to his goons, ordering the bodyguards to force me to my knees at the front entrance of the headquarters to repent. I absolutely refused to bow down to him, so he aggressively escalated his psycho behavior. He took the remaining half cup of coffee and splashed it directly into my face. "What are you glaring at? You mad, bro? Let me give you a brutal reality check. Seraphina's heart only has room for me. No matter what chaotic stuff I pull, she will always cater to me, let alone punishing a lowly little secretary like you." After delivering his pathetic cartoon villain monologue, he strutted away with his nose stuck high in the air. The bodyguards forcefully dragged me downstairs. They violently forced me down, making my knees crash painfully into the cold concrete floor. I struggled frantically, but I simply couldn't break free. I could only try to reason with these human brick walls. "I have already officially resigned. I am no longer Seraphina's secretary. On what legal grounds are you forcing me to kneel?" The bodyguards were utterly unmoved. Their tone was dead, cold, and robotic. Boss Seraphina gave us strict orders. Young Master Lysander's word is her word. No matter what bizarre demands he makes, we must execute them. "Secretary Caspian, save your breath. Take it up with Boss Seraphina." Just like that, a few cold words from the bodyguard slammed my mouth completely shut. I got the message loud and clear. Even if I screamed out here until my lungs bled, they wouldn't listen. So, I just gave up struggling. An endless stream of coworkers and random strangers walked by, all of them secretly gossiping and whispering behind my back. Some were even snapping pictures on their phones. In the dead of freezing winter, I was forced to kneel outside for 7 agonizing hours. The skin on my knees was scraped completely raw, and my face turned a terrifying shade of purple from the biting chill. My entire body was violently shaking. Honestly, I survived out there purely on raw spite and sheer willpower. Right as the workday was ending, my consciousness started to heavily blur. But then, I heard someone screaming my name. I forced my heavy head up and saw Declan sprinting toward me like an Olympic runner. "Caspian, you literally just got out of the hospital. Why the hell are you kneeling out here? Who is deliberately torturing you?" My throat was bone dry. I instinctively muttered. It was Lysander. The second he heard that cursed name, Declan's fury erupted like a volcano. Supporting my weight, he kicked the door and charged straight into Seraphina's executive office. "Lysander, don't push your luck, you absolute psycho. Caspian didn't even do anything to you. What right do you have to force him to kneel? He is my sister's secretary. He has absolutely zero connection to you. Who gave you the right to act like a king in this building?" Seraphina was in there too. Seeing my tragic half-frozen state, she furrowed her brows in annoyance. She was just opening her mouth to ask what the hell happened, when Lysander instantly wrapped his arms around her waist. "Seraphina, I didn't do anything. I have zero grudges against Secretary Caspian. Why would I randomly force him to kneel? I honestly have no idea how I offended him. He's just maliciously framing me." Listening to this snake boldly play the victim, Declan was so furious, his brain practically short-circuited. He charged directly at Lysander and delivered a crisp, 5-star punch straight to his jaw. "You lying piece of trash. Caspian never lies." For the first time in his pampered little life, Lysander had to eat a punch. Instantly, he burst into dramatic crocodile tears. "Seraphina, your secretary maliciously frames me, and now even your own brother is ganging up on me. Fine. You guys are the real family. We are breaking up." Hearing that dreaded breakup word, absolute panic flashed across Seraphina's face. Then, she coldly stood up, raised her hand, and slapped Declan right across the face. "Enough, Declan. When are you going to stop throwing these tantrums? Lysander is your future brother-in-law." Then, she shot me an icy death glare. "Why are you framing Lysander for absolutely no reason? If there is a next time, you can kiss your secretary job goodbye." Declan just stood there, holding his cheek, staring at his own sister, in absolute, mind-blown shock. God, I deeply regretted dragging him into this mess. I hurriedly pulled him away, and we got the hell out of there. Declan was practically vibrating with suppressed rage, ready to storm right back in and fight her again. I had no choice but to drop the bomb. I had already officially quit, and I was packing my bags to leave the capital city for good. Hearing that I was ghosting the city, a tidal wave of heartbreak and reluctance washed over him. He completely forgot about seeking revenge. He grabbed my shoulders and bombarded me with endless questions, begging me and asking if I really had to leave. I just gently patted his back. "Declan, there is no banquet in this world that never ends." Hearing that, his eyes instantly welled up with tears. For my very last day in the capital city, the two bros went out for a massive feast. We sighed endlessly about how crazy life was. That night, he refused to go back to his giant mansion, squeezing into my tiny rental apartment so we could drink together. I aggressively swore to him that even after I moved back home, I would text him every single day. If I met a decent girl on my blind dates, he would be the very first person I'd tell. The two of us stayed up chatting through the entire night. We talked about the past, the present, and the future, right up until we ran out of words. When dawn finally broke, he personally chauffeured me to the airport. But right as we were having our tearful, dramatic goodbye, Seraphina's text popped up on his phone. She was demanding to know exactly where Declan was. Still holding a massive grudge about the slap from last night, he was just about to call her and verbally annihilate her. But I quickly grabbed his arm. "Forget it, Declan. Let the past be the past. From now on, do not start wars with Lysander over me. Your sister is genuinely madly in love with him. In the future, he is going to be your brother-in-law. You guys need to play nice." Hearing this, Declan's eyes turned red all over again. Very quickly, it was time to board the flight. I waved goodbye to Declan, turned my back, and walked through the boarding gate. Right before stepping onto the plane, I sent Seraphina one final, parting text message. 8 years of a secret crush, and 4 years of absurd chaos. This is where our story ends. Boss Seraphina. From this exact second forward, I am officially done being your secretary, and I am completely done loving you. We are going right back to being total strangers. In this lifetime, there is absolutely zero reason for us to ever cross paths again. After hitting send, I honestly could not care less about what she had to say back. I instantly blocked her number and wiped out every single way she could contact me. Then, without giving it a second thought, I turned around and boarded my flight. The exact moment my message went through, Seraphina was busy drying her hair. She heard her phone ping, but right as she reached out for it, Lysander lunged forward and snatched it right out of her hands. "I will check it for you," he teased, waving the device around with a ridiculously smug grin plastered on his face. Seraphina literally could not say no to him. She smiled back and said, "Sure thing." Her phone had already been set up to unlock with his fingerprint for a long time anyway. The guy smoothly tapped open my chat window and read my final text. A flash of pure, unadulterated disgust immediately crossed his eyes. With a super casual flick of his finger, he wiped the message from existence. On his very first day back in town, he had already figured out the messy history between Seraphina and me. But in his totally arrogant brain, he just assumed it was my pathetic, one-sided obsession. Honestly, everyone in their snobby elite circle knew Seraphina was just a lovesick fool when it came to him. She loved the guy down to the very marrow of her bones. Why would she ever actually fall for a complete nobody like me? Right after trashing my text, he also happened to notice a massive pile of super urgent business emails from her corporate partners. He happily hit select all, and dumped every single one of those into the trash, too. Right at that moment, Seraphina finished drying her hair. Smelling faintly of wildly expensive body wash, she leaned over and wrapped her arms tight around his waist. What was the message? Lysander turned right around and hugged her back tightly. He casually tossed the phone onto the nightstand. It was just some annoying spam text. Do not even worry about that garbage. Let us just pick up right where we left off. Yeah? He smirked, pulling her in so his burning hot body pressed tightly against hers. She was instantly swept right up into the mood. She nodded and whispered, okay. She completely forgot her phone even existed. She dragged Lysander straight to the bed for a wild night of passion. Fast forward to the next morning, and Seraphina was still dead to the world in her beauty sleep. Suddenly, her phone started blaring like an actual fire alarm. She really did not want to deal with it at first, but the ringtone just kept blasting nonstop. It annoyed her to the absolute breaking point. I do not even have a single thing scheduled for work today, she muttered. She glanced over at the man cuddling her like a giant koala, grabbed the device, and aggressively dropped her voice to a whisper. Her face was a perfect picture of pure irritation. What the hell is so urgent? Today is the weekend. I specifically told you I have 0 work scheduled. On the other end of the line was her backup secretary. Her tone was totally frantic, sounding like she was literally hyperventilating. Boss, yesterday, the corporate partners sent you the finalized emails. They are already coming in for the mega meeting today. They just arrived at the lobby. Boss Seraphina. Literally every single person is waiting for you right now. Seraphina froze. What? Since when? I absolutely never received any emails. Seraphina's sleepiness evaporated in a flash. She bolted upright in bed and frantically started ripping off her pajamas to get dressed. Her eyebrows locked together in a deeply angry frown. A massive corporate crisis like this, and Caspian did not even bother to notify me? What the hell is he even doing? If the company suffers catastrophic losses today, is he going to take the blame for it? You tell him to drive over and pick me up this exact instant. Does he actually think I am still mad at him? So he is just straight up boycotting his job now? But, surprisingly enough, the backup assistant on the other end of the call went completely dead, silent. She cautiously and timidly whispered, Boss, Seraphina. Secretary Caspian has already formally resigned. That one sentence struck her brain like a massive bolt of lightning. Seraphina gripped her phone so hard her knuckles turned stark white. Since when the hell did this happen? Did I ever approve his resignation? You tell him to get his ass back to the office immediately. Until I personally sign off on it, he is absolutely not allowed to quit. At this exact moment, she had entirely forgotten about Lysander sleeping right there in her bed. She was literally screaming her lungs out into the phone. How does he even dare to just quit over a few petty little arguments? I explicitly told him that Lysander is the single most important person in my entire life. I promised him that whatever minor grievances he has to suffer right now, I would heavily compensate him for it later. And he actually has the absolute nerve to just ghost me without saying a single damn word? Her eyes darkened drastically with pure rage. She was clearly furious to the absolute extreme. She scared the poor backup secretary so badly that the girl was violently shivering through the phone. The assistant did not even dare to breathe another word. Right when Seraphina's patience was about to snap in half, a strong arm lazily wrapped around her waist. What is wrong, Seraphina? It was Lysander, looking exactly like a sleepy, grumpy toddler who had just been forced awake. Seeing his face, Seraphina involuntarily softened her tone. It is just some boring corporate drama, babe. Do not even worry about it. Go right back to sleep. She fully intended to sprint straight to the office. No matter what happened, she absolutely could not afford to offend these mega partners. But Lysander aggressively clung to her like a giant leech. No, you have to stay and sleep with me. It is still way too early. Seraphina, please do not leave me alone. His sickly sweet whining immediately sent weak, fluttery shivers straight through her heart. Flashing back to their steamy late-night escapades, she totally gave in, letting Lysander pull her right back into his arms and under the covers. She laid there, waiting until she finally coaxed him back to sleep. Boom. Another half hour, completely wasted. Her phone screen was blowing up, absolutely flooded with missed calls from her assistants. Her eyes darkened as she quickly typed out a response. Pushed today's meeting to the afternoon, but her assistant fired back instantly. Boss Seraphina, they already walked out. That massive contract? It is completely dead. Her heart violently seized in her chest. But looking down at that perfect angelic face sleeping in her arms, she convinced herself it was all worth the cost. She forced a smile, but it quickly melted into a heavy frown. Remembering the weird details her assistant just dropped, Seraphina opened her email app. 0, not a single new message. Then, it hit her. Lysander had been messing around with her phone last night. With a creeping sense of dread, she tapped open the trash folder. Instantly, all the color drained from her face. She gritted her teeth so hard her jaw ached. Sitting right there, rotting in the trash, were the urgent emails from her corporate partners. The timestamps perfectly matched the exact moment she was drying her hair, completely away from her screen. And the only living, breathing human who touched her phone last night? Lysander. A massive, fiery wave of pure rage exploded in her chest. The guy knew absolutely zilch about business, yet he boldly played boss, swiping away her critical corporate emails. Blowing this mega deal meant her company just instantly lost 10% of its entire annual profit. But, on top of that, meeting this huge, why didn't Caspian notify her? In the past, even if the email went straight to her inbox, Caspian would have everything perfectly prepped by 7 a.m. But this time? If it wasn't for Caspian throwing some petty little tantrum, how could she have possibly lost those VIP partners? Furious, she aggressively dialed my number, desperate to interrogate me, but no one answered. No matter how many times she spammed the call button, she only got the same dead, robotic voicemail tone. Panic suddenly gripped her heart as a horrifying realization set in. She opened the trash folder again and dug deeper. And there it was. She found the text message I sent her last night. Frantic, she smashed the restore button. The message popped right back into her inbox, and reading it felt like a violent stab straight to her eyes. 8 years of a secret crush, 4 years of total absurd chaos. It all ends right here. Boss Seraphina. From this exact moment forward, I am no longer your secretary, and I no longer love you. We are going back to being complete strangers. In this lifetime, we never need to see each other ever again. Staring at this final, brutal message, for some bizarre reason, she felt like she should have been hit with a massive wave of relief. I had finally stopped obsessing over her, exactly like she ordered. I was finally done helplessly clinging to her like a lifeline. But faced with the cold, hard reality of my permanent exit, her heart was suddenly crushed by a suffocating, breathless agony. It literally felt like a massive piece of her soul had just been brutally ripped right out of her chest. Her brain wouldn't stop replaying our entire history. 4 years ago, one chaotic little accident, and we rolled right into bed together. At that exact moment, her head was fully occupied by Lysander. All she wanted was to throw some cash at me and get rid of her brother's annoying best friend. She never, ever planned on starting anything real with me. But my eyes were always so bright, yet so incredibly cautious, just like a pathetic, fiercely loyal stray puppy. It completely wrecked her ability to coldly turn me away. She could only silently let it all happen. We engaged in the most wild, absurd behavior in every hidden corner of the city, leaving traces of our secret affair absolutely everywhere. For 4 solid years, I was her most flawless secretary by day and her perfect bed warmer by night. I never boldly demanded a single thing from her. I just silently endured her endless, selfish taking. Even though I trailed behind her like a nameless shadow with zero official title, I still looked so perfectly content, so completely happy. Seraphina had secretly mocked me in her head countless times, thinking I was just an astronomically stupid man. Give me the tiniest little crumb of fake affection, and I willingly handed over my entire life. She had explicitly warned me, don't ever fantasize about a future with me. I will only ever belong to Lysander. Well, congratulations. Her wish finally came true. She finally shook off her annoying little shadow. So why didn't she feel that euphoric rush of joy? She stared blankly at that text message for an absolute eternity. Finally, she forcefully snapped out of it. If I left, then I left. Honestly, good riddance. This is exactly how our separate paths were always meant to go. She tossed her phone aside, completely refusing to look at it again, and peacefully cuddled her precious Lysander back to sleep, to forcefully, violently suppress the sickening, hollow discomfort tearing at her chest. She shoved all her corporate duties back by several days, and dragged Lysander out to play tourist. No matter what obscenely expensive jewelry or luxury cars he pointed at, she swiped her black card without even blinking. But the harder she tried to fake it, the more intense her inner panic grew. A dark, heavy cloud of unshakable irritation was now permanently glued to her face. Lysander? Yeah, he was completely oblivious, not noticing a single thing around him. The guy was just way too deep into his little shopping spree. While waiting for him to try on his clothes, Seraphina just couldn't resist pulling out her phone. Almost instinctively, she tapped right into our chat history. The crazy part? Our last real conversation was frozen in time, over a whole month ago. Ever since her precious Lysander made his grand return, she hadn't bothered to text me even once, but right then, a sudden, uncontrollable impulse completely took over her. Her fingers slowly tapped out a message, and she hit send. You can come back whenever you want, and just go right back to being my secretary. But this grand, generous olive branch she thought she was offering me? It was brutally shut down. by a glaringly bright red exclamation mark. Message not delivered. For the absolute first time in so many years, I had actually gone ahead and blocked her. Seraphina's hands actually started trembling. She just stared dead at her screen, until Lysander practically skipped right back over to her. Seraphina, sorry to keep you waiting. Let's go see the Northern Lights tomorrow. Please? The guy had just changed into this super chic casual outfit. He wrapped his arm around her shoulder, whining in that overly sweet voice of his. She quickly locked her phone screen. She didn't let a single drop of panic show on her face. But honestly, she completely lost the mood to even enjoy him touching her. Tomorrow, I really need to get back to the office. I've been gone way too long, and there is a mountain of corporate fires just waiting for me to put out. Once I handle all of that, I'll take you out to play again. Okay? As the mega CEO of a corporate empire, she obviously had a massive tsunami of major decisions and crucial board meetings waiting on her. Honestly, just squeezing out these few days of vacation was already pushing her schedule to the absolute limit. Just so she could play babysitter for Lysander, her company had been actively bleeding money this entire time. The man's eyebrows instantly scrunched together. He was clearly extremely annoyed by this. Fine. But I am coming to the office with you. I am going to help you out, Seraphina. Lysander smiled what he thought was his absolute most charming smile. And somehow, it successfully injected just a tiny drop of sweetness right back into her completely chaotic heart. She forced herself to completely block out the thought of my existence. But the second they arrived at corporate headquarters, a huge swarm of secretaries instantly ambushed her. Boss Seraphina, you are finally here. This is the absolute catastrophic profit and loss report from just the past few days. And these are the major corporate partners who are threatening to terminate our contracts immediately. The whole situation is a total code red emergency. Oh, and there is this, too. This is the massive employee turnover report from just the past week. An entire battalion of our most senior veteran staff members are literally drafting their resignation letters right now. Seraphina's eyebrows locked together into a deep, furious scowl. She had barely stepped away for one short vacation. How in the world did the company mutate into this absolute apocalyptic wasteland? She angrily snatched the files right out of their hands, and just glancing at them gave her a splitting migraine. She violently slammed the heavy folder straight onto the floor. What exactly are you people even paid to do? I leave for barely a few days, and you all somehow manage to hemorrhage this insane amount of money? And those corporate partners. Could you seriously not stall them for just a minute until I got back? Crash. The heavy binders hit the floor with a terrifying, deafening boom. The entire pack of secretaries was way too terrified to even breathe. After a long, absolutely agonizing silence, one of them finally squeaked out in a tiny, shaking voice. Well, normally, Secretary Caspian is the one who somehow magically handles all of these crises for us, Boss Seraphina. Her knee-jerk instinct was to just scream for me to enter the room. But a split second later, she remembered that I had already packed up all my stuff and completely ghosted her. Her face instantly darkened by about 50 shades. She replied in a chilling, almost demonic voice. So, you are seriously telling me that tasks he can handle flawlessly, you absolute clowns cannot figure out? Not a single soul dared to utter a peep. For 4 solid years, I had worked my tail off for that place, like a complete corporate pack mule. Everyone there had seen my sheer, undeniable competence with their own 2 eyes. They all deeply knew that they completely lacked the skills to pull off what I did on a daily basis. In this dead, suffocating office silence, Lysander suddenly let out a light, arrogant little chuckle. Stop being so angry, Seraphina. It is just one measly little secretary quitting. Big deal. I will just take over his job. I guarantee you, I'll do it 1,000,000 times better than he ever did. You just take a break and relax. I will handle all this boring stuff for you. Seraphina offered up a slightly relieved, but clearly exhausted smile. I guess I will have to trouble you then, Lysander. From now on, all of you will take your orders directly from Lysander. After dropping that massive bomb, Seraphina scooped up the most urgent, life-or-death files and retreated into her inner sanctum to work, leaving Lysander and the utterly terrified herd of secretaries just standing there in the lobby. But the exact millisecond Seraphina was out of earshot, Lysander's entire face mutated. He glared at the secretaries like they were literal trash stuck to the bottom of his shoe. Then suddenly, smack. He reached out and viciously slapped one of them right across the face. He sneered at them like a cheap comic book villain. Just now, you stood way too close to Boss Seraphina. What exactly were you trying to pull? trying to seduce her. These absolutely insane accusations completely horrified the poor secretaries. They grabbed their stinging cheeks, desperately trying to defend themselves. Like, how is this even happening? We were literally just doing our jobs. Please, stop making up these insane lies. But Lysander wasn't having any of it. He completely ignored logic, called in his personal goons, and ordered them to physically drag the secretaries right out of the building. Ban them. Don't ever let them set foot in this company again, he snapped. Right after, he slipped into a ridiculously tight, custom-tailored suit. The slim-fit white shirt hugged his body, perfectly highlighting his broad shoulders and narrow waist. He purposely left the top few buttons undone, blatantly flashing the fresh hickeys scattered across his collarbone. He gave the CEO's door a soft knock. The second he heard Seraphina's muffled grunt of approval, he slithered right inside. "Boss, Seraphina," he purred, grabbing her hand and forcefully dragging it downward. But with a literal mountain of corporate fires to put out, Seraphina had zero mental bandwidth for spicy time. She let out a heavy groan, her eyebrows bunching up in pure frustration. "Lysander, what exactly are you trying to do right now? Things are way too critical today. Can we please just focus on work first?" But Lysander completely brushed off her rejection. He slammed both hands down on the armrests of her executive chair, totally trapping her. "We can work later. It'll be perfectly fine." "Boss, Seraphina," he whispered. His large hand slid down from her collarbone, tracing every curve. In an instant, Seraphina's entire body went soft. A rush of electric numbness shot straight up her spine. She just couldn't fight off the demonic temptation anymore. She violently grabbed Lysander's collar and yanked him down for a kiss. It was a scorching, aggressive kiss. And it wasn't until high noon that the chaotic, heavy noises in that office finally died down. By the end of it, Lysander's neck was a literal starry galaxy of red marks, and Seraphina's expensive designer collar was totally mangled. She casually glanced at her. "Rolex, it's already this late. Why hasn't the secretary brought our lunch up yet?" "If it were me, I absolutely, 100% would never forget something this crucial," he scoffed. Her face instantly went sour, and she aggressively dialed her secretary's extension. "What the hell is going on out there? You guys seriously can't even remember to bring us food? Do you all want to be fired?" The voice on the other end trembled. "Boss Seraphina, we were all physically thrown out of the building by young Master Lysander. We talked it over, and we've decided to officially quit. We just don't possess Secretary Caspian's god-tier level of patience. We can't just keep swallowing this abuse over and over again." The secretary's tone was utterly exhausted, like she was completely done with everything. Seraphina's brain didn't even process the info right away. Her knee-jerk reaction was simply, "Wait, what does Caspian have to do with this?" The secretary on the other end just let out a massive, heavy sigh. She forwarded a massive zipped file. "Everything is in there. Goodbye, Boss Seraphina." And just like that, she dropped the mic and hung up. Seraphina's chest suddenly filled with a toxic cocktail of dark suspicion and rising panic. Taking a breath, she clicked open the file. Inside, it was a literal goldmine. Hours of hidden CCTV footage and hard evidence exposing Lysander's fake, self-directed soap operas from the very first day he crawled back, right up until this exact moment. Every single thing he had blamed me for. All the times I was painted as the villain. It was pure, fabricated slander. The more Seraphina watched, the colder her blood ran. The deep, suppressed emotions she had locked away could not be hidden anymore. She never, in a million freaking years, imagined that Lysander was actually this kind of psychotic, two-faced monster. And during this entire time, I was the one suffering an unimaginable amount of horrific injustice. Her heart felt like it just completely flatlined. She stared blankly at the video clips for what felt like an eternity. Meanwhile, Lysander was lounging lazily in an armchair across the room. Noticing she was weirdly frozen like a statue, he smirked and asked, "Seraphina, what's wrong? Didn't you yell at someone to bring us food? I am literally starving." Seraphina slowly rotated her head to look at him. The look in her eyes didn't hold even a single trace of that deep, obsessive love from before. "Seraphina?" he mumbled, utterly incapable of believing his own eyes. Lysander called out her name one more time, but Seraphina's expression remained completely dead, empty. A sudden spike of sheer panic stabbed right through his chest. The woman finally opened her mouth, and her voice? It was like Arctic ice. "Why, exactly? Did you do all of this?" His brain completely failed to compute. "What are you even talking about, Seraphina?" The very next second, she exploded like a screaming banshee. "I asked you, why did you do this? Why did you purposely frame Caspian? Even though he was severely jump-scared by her explosive tone, the very second he heard my name, Lysander still looked utterly confused. Isn't he literally just a lowly secretary? What's the big freaking deal? Seraphina, why are you throwing such a massive tantrum over him? Didn't you personally say it yourself, that he is merely a secretary? He spoke with the arrogant confidence of someone who thought he was completely untouchable, but Seraphina felt like all the air had just been violently punched right out of her lungs. Yeah, she was the one who had personally driven me away, so why in the world was she getting this insanely angry now? Lysander strutted closer, attempting to wrap his arms around her waist. Come on, stop being mad, Seraphina. Let's just go grab some food, okay? But hearing that pathetic whiny voice of his, the irritation in Seraphina's chest multiplied by 1,000,000. Her brain was aggressively spamming her with images of my battered, humiliated face. She was the one who had stabbed me in the back, time and time again. Instead of just trusting me, she tortured me during those dark moments. How unimaginably shattered must my heart have been. The more she thought about it, the more she felt like she was drowning in guilt. She completely lost the patience to even fake a polite smile. She violently shoved Lysander away. If you want to eat, go eat by yourself. I am absolutely not in the mood right now. She didn't push him that hard, but the dramatic jerk stumbled backward a few steps. His face was plastered with pure, absolute shock. This woman, who had treated him like a literal god for the past few weeks, was actually shoving him away for someone else? And that someone else was me, a lowly, resigned secretary. Lysander's emotional powder keg instantly exploded. Seraphina, what the hell are you doing? You're actually treating me like this over Caspian, a freaking secretary. What's next? Are you gonna dump me and go crawling back to beg that loser to return? Lysander's screaming accusations felt like a literal cheese grater against Seraphina's brain. She honestly had zero idea what she was doing anymore. Why did she feel so physically ill, so undeniably heartbroken? If I was finally gone, shouldn't she be throwing a party? Our chaotic mess of a relationship should never have started in the first place. But right now, she could only clench her fists so tight, her nails dug into her palms, desperately trying to control her spiraling, messy emotions. I am just extremely exhausted. Go eat by yourself. Lysander let out a dramatic, piercing scoff. He didn't even bother trying to coax her anymore. He aggressively spun around on his heel and stormed right out the door. Facing the absolute disaster zone inside her office, Seraphina felt a splitting, apocalyptic migraine coming on. She didn't order anyone else to bring her food either. Instead, she threw herself violently into her corporate paperwork, desperately praying to wipe her brain of all those chaotic thoughts. She slaved away from the afternoon, straight through to the dead of night. She finally managed to put out the most catastrophic corporate fires. And honestly, it was hilariously ironic. Almost all of those apocalyptic messes were exclusively caused by Lysander's childish tantrums. Just to clean up his massive messes, she had basically torched the company's entire annual profit margin. She sat up straight in her chair, leaned back, and took a massive, shuddering breath. Outside the window, the sky was pitch black. She picked up her phone to check it again. 0 notifications, 0 messages. Her heart felt like a hollowed-out cavern. An indescribable, crushing wave of exhaustion and sheer loneliness completely swallowed her alive. Right now, she was the only living soul left in this massive corporate tower. She couldn't stop her mouth from softly whispering my name, Caspian. This was the absolute first time since my grand exit that she had actually spoken my name out loud. Those few syllables were like a cursed spell. Once spoken, the floodgates opened, and she couldn't stop her brain from aggressively spamming her with memories of me. In the past, no matter how insanely late she worked, I would always sit right there with her. I organized every single tiny detail with flawless, robotic perfection. We would violently entangle ourselves against the floor-to-ceiling windows. My face would flush with a gorgeous, delicate pink from the sheer passion. When I looked at her, my eyes were as tragically sincere as a loyal, hopelessly devoted puppy's. But I had zero idea that this exact, pathetic look made people want to bully me even more. More and more memories violently crashed into her brain. She completely lost control of her mental state. She snatched up her phone and frantically dialed her brother's number. Seconds ticked by. It felt longer than half a century. Finally, the line connected. She desperately rushed to speak. Declan, you know where Caspian went, don't you? Her own brother let out a chilling, sarcastic laugh. Sis, you and your precious Lysander are playing the perfect, disgustingly sweet couple right now. Why the hell are you looking for Caspian? She swallowed hard, gripping the phone like it was her absolute last lifeline. I know everything now. All that insane drama from before. Lysander directed and starred in it all himself. I want to drag Lysander over and formally apologize to Caspian. He can come back. From now on, I will never, ever let Lysander make things hard for him again. Before she could even finish her pathetic speech, Declan brutally cut her off. Save it. Caspian doesn't need your garbage apologies anymore, and you can forget about ever finding him for the rest of your miserable life. Click. Declan violently hung up the phone. Listening to the dead dial tone echoing in her ear, a tsunami of pure regret and pathetic helplessness completely crushed her chest. She shrieked and violently smashed her phone into the floor, and right at that exact second, she heard the office door being pushed open. She bolted upright like a lightning rod, her heart pounding in her chest. For a split second, she genuinely believed the man she was so desperately hallucinating about had finally come back to her. Caspian, she breathed, staring at the doorway with desperate, starving eyes. But the person who swaggered in wasn't the savior she was so desperately craving. It was Lysander. The guy had clearly heard the name she just blurted out, and his fragile brain completely short-circuited trying to comprehend it. I mean, I was literally just a lowly secretary to him. Why did my annoying ghost keep haunting his perfect little relationship? He stared at Seraphina's violently disappointed face, and his fragile ego just couldn't handle the crushing contrast. Why is it always Caspian? Seraphina, are you actually in love with him? He shrieked, totally losing it. But Seraphina? She didn't even bother answering him. The exact millisecond she realized the person walking through that door wasn't me, her brain completely checked out. But seeing her zone out like a total zombie, that only poured gallons of gasoline onto Lysander's rage. His mind was completely hijacked by pure, unfiltered fury. He started screaming hysterically like an absolute lunatic. He is just a lowly secretary. A pathetic piece of trash. The very first day I came back, I knew his intentions toward you were dirty. A disgusting roach like him leaving is the absolute best thing that ever happened to us. Seraphina, didn't you swear that the only person you love is me? What the hell is all this right now? Are you seriously telling me you actually fell in love with him? Facing Lysander's relentless, ear-piercing shrieks, Seraphina's mind was a chaotic blender of emotions. She stayed completely dead silent, but Lysander had grown way too accustomed to being treated like some untouchable god. And the colder she acted toward him, the more completely psychotic his hatred for me became. He violently swept everything off her fancy executive desk, smashing it all to pieces on the floor. I heard everything just now. You asked where Caspian went. You actually want to find him. You want to drag him right back here. You literally fell in love with him. Right then and there, her patience officially flatlined. The way she looked at Lysander now contained absolutely zero trace of that obsessive love she had for him before. She thoroughly, absolutely, could not comprehend why her past self would ever simp so hard for a pathetic creature like this. He was totally unreasonable, constantly throwing tantrums, spoiled rotten, and disgustingly arrogant. He was the literal reason I was forced to pack up and leave. Thinking about this, Seraphina just couldn't hold it in for another second. With bloodshot eyes, she fired right back at him. So what if I fell in love with Caspian? Do you even have the slightest clue what kind of apocalyptic mess you've caused around here recently? Once the dam broke, all that suppressed fury spewed out of her like an erupting volcano. Seraphina stalked toward him, step by menacing step. You violently chased away every single one of my secretaries. You illegally snooped into my private phone and deleted my critical corporate emails. You single-handedly caused multiple mega-partners to completely sever ties with us. Inside my own company, I gave you an inch, and you paraded around like a literal tyrant. You terrorized my hard-working employees. You pushed them to the exact point where they are literally staging a mass walkout right now. Do you have any concept of how many millions you have cost my company over these past few weeks? I could have turned a blind eye to all of that nonsense. But why the hell did you force Caspian to leave? You framed him time and time again. You pushed him to the absolute breaking point until he couldn't even survive here anymore. You know what? You are absolutely right. I do like Caspian. I am madly in love with him. You completely vanished for years. And during all those years, Caspian was the only one who stayed faithfully by my side. Lysander, what right do you have to trash talk him? She roared like a fierce lioness. Her eyes were so terrifyingly dark, it genuinely spooked Lysander to his core. He literally couldn't stop himself from trembling. But his big mouth was still stubbornly arrogant. I have the right because he is just a lowly secretary. Who the hell does that loser think he is? But before he could even finish his pathetic sentence, Seraphina raised her hand and delivered a crisp, 5-star slap right across his face. Smack! The sharp, stinging sound violently echoed through the entire room. Lysander was utterly mind-blown. Seraphina had actually physically hit him. You hit me? Lysander looked like his entire reality had just been shattered. You constantly spewed about how much you loved me, and now you're actually slapping me over a freaking secretary. But all of his pathetic whining was entirely useless now. Having finally woken up and fully realized her true feelings, the way Seraphina looked at him now was purely dripping with absolute disgust. She grabbed the whimpering man by his collar, and without a single shred of hesitation, she delivered another brutal backhand. A heavy, savage hit. Lysander's head violently snapped to the side. His cheek instantly swelled up into a giant red balloon. Yet, the blazing hellfire in the woman's eyes didn't dim for a single second. Every single word she spoke was like sub-zero ice. The injustices Caspian suffered were 1,000,000 times worse than this little slap. Slapping you is literally nothing. I'm going to make you kneel on the ground and grovel for his forgiveness. The woman's gaze was totally dead and absolutely merciless. Any tiny, lingering shred of sympathy she might have still had for him was completely and utterly annihilated. Right now, just looking at Lysander only made her physically nauseous. She simply couldn't believe she had played the clown for him all these years, relentlessly torturing Caspian in the process. Seraphina's fingers tightened their merciless death grip on his collar, ready to make him pay. Her expression was so dead, so freezing cold, it radiated pure, unadulterated terror. It made Lysander genuinely fear for his miserable life. He had never, ever seen this demon version of Seraphina. She was supposed to be his loyal simp, catering to his every little whim, and this was all because of that bastard, Caspian. Lysander's eyes were dripping with toxic venom. You could tell he wanted to slice me into 1,000 bloody pieces. Seraphina, of course, caught that exact look. She only hated herself for being totally blind until this exact moment, failing to see his true, ugly colors. She had let me suffer a mountain of agonizing injustice for absolutely nothing. She let out a chilling demonic chuckle. It made the blood in his veins run absolutely cold. Now, it is time to pay Caspian back for every single thing you did to him. Saying this, she grabbed Lysander by the hair and started violently dragging him right out the door. The woman's absolute psychotic rage utterly terrified Lysander. He abandoned every last shred of his precious dignity and frantically thrashed around, trying to escape, but he was completely powerless against her grip. He was dragged like a literal trash bag all the way to the office doors. Then, a squad of gorillas, bodyguards rushed over and brutally pinned him to the floor. Since you love forcing people to kneel so much, then you will kneel right here until tomorrow morning. She coldly ordered the bodyguards to stand watch over him. Completely ignoring Lysander's pathetic, screeching begs for mercy right behind her, she spun around and walked away. Right now, her entire brain was violently consumed by the thought of me. The absolute millisecond she confessed she loved me, she finally realized how astronomically stupid she had been all along. Through 4 whole years of existing together day and night, she had long become hopelessly addicted to my presence, but her massive ego absolutely refused to admit it. She just had to insist on losing me before she realized how horribly she screwed up. Inside her car, she violently punched the steering wheel in frustration. Then, like a rabid animal, she started ripping out every single tacky decoration Lysander had left in the car, hurling them straight out the window. Caspian hates this tacky garbage. She needed to purge it all. Whether it was the cheap dashboard toys, the ugly seat covers, or the stupid snacks he bought, she aggressively chucked every single piece out. But no matter how hard she stared at the empty interior, this car no longer held a single trace of her memories with me. We had acted so absurdly wild inside this very vehicle so many times before. Yet she could not find a single breadcrumb of evidence. At that exact moment, Seraphina's heart felt like it was being brutally sawed in half. She absolutely could not handle it anymore. She smashed her own car until it looked like it barely survived a demolition derby, venting the psychotic rage boiling inside her. Then she hijacked a totally different car and sped all the way back to her massive mansion. But even here, the place had completely mutated into Lysander's tacky paradise. He had only been back for barely a month, yet he had completely eradicated 4 years of my entire existence. Seraphina's eyes were terrifyingly bloodshot. Standing right in the middle of her own massive mansion, she felt like she literally could not breathe. These obnoxiously bright decorations felt like literal knives, repeatedly stabbing deep into her heart. She tore the house apart like an absolute maniac, desperately searching for anything I might have left behind, even just a tiny scrap of fabric. But there was absolutely nothing left. Her pathetic sense of helplessness finally reached critical mass. She could only resort to violently smashing every single object in the house into tiny little pieces. She did not even dare close her eyes. The millisecond she did, my face would violently flash right into her brain. On that fateful final day, she had just stood there, watching me pack my entire life into a cardboard box, and she did not lift a single finger to stop me. She just watched me carry my whole universe away. She let out a guttural, agonizing scream. She wished she could just rip a hole in time, travel back, and violently shake her past self for being such a passive idiot. She sat paralyzed in the completely ruined mansion for the entire night, desperately trying to scavenge the last microscopic molecules of warmth I had left behind. When dawn finally broke, her assistant awkwardly shuffled in. "Boss Seraphina, it is time to head to the office. Young Master Lysander is still waiting for you." He cautiously dropped the reminder. Seraphina slowly lifted her terrifyingly red, bloodshot eyes. Her heart was now entirely filled with pure, unadulterated hatred. If it was not for Lysander, how could Caspian have possibly ever left her? "This is 100% Lysander's fault. Drive to the office," she croaked out. Her vocal cords were so completely shredded, she barely sounded human. When Seraphina finally arrived at corporate headquarters, it was peak morning rush hour. A massive herd of corporate drones was swarming the main lobby. Every single eyeball was glued to a specific corner of the building. There knelt Lysander, looking exactly like a feral homeless man. His hair was a complete rat's nest, and his face was smeared with dark grime. He was brutally pinned to the floor by the bodyguards, looking like an absolute tragic mess. He had been forced to kneel for an entire night. His weak body was violently swaying, literally seconds away from passing out cold, and the absolute death glares from the crowd buried him in unimaginably agonizing humiliation. The once incredibly glamorous, untouchable Lysander. He was now fueled entirely by his psychotic, unhinged hatred for me. He shrieked hysterically at the top of his lungs, "Caspian, you pathetic piece of trash. This is all your fault. If it wasn't for you, why would Seraphina ever treat me like this? Why don't you just roll over and die? The world would be so much better off if you were dead. How dare you try to seduce Seraphina? You are a shameless, disgusting parasite." His feral screeching instantly triggered a wave of extreme disgust from the surrounding crowd. A few coworkers who actually respected me stepped right up to defend my honor. Lysander was so enraged, he looked like he was about to pop a blood vessel. He spat pure venom at the crowd. "You pack of brainless idiots. He definitely bribed all of you to bark for him." Right at that exact moment, Seraphina marched over with giant strides. The crowd instantly parted for her like the Red Sea. Her eyes were sub-zero glaciers. She stared down at Lysander, her gaze dripping with pure disappointment and lethal disgust. But Lysander, he acted like he'd just seen his guardian angel. He frantically crawled right to her feet, wrapped his arms tightly around her legs, and wailed, "Seraphina, you have to get justice for me. They're all bullying me. Caspian brainwashed every single one of them." Seraphina violently kicked him away like a sack of hot garbage. She spoke in a chillingly flat voice. "Lysander, are you seriously still playing the victim? Every single psychotic stunt you pulled, I know all about it. You repeatedly and maliciously framed Caspian. You caused my company to hemorrhage massive amounts of cash. Did you honestly think I would just keep spoiling you like a bratty toddler?" Lysander crashed hard onto the floor. His eyes bulged with absolute mind-numbing disbelief. "Seraphina, how can you treat me like this? I'm the one you love." Seraphina just stood tall, looking down at him like he was a pathetic little bug. Without a single shred of hesitation, she declared, "The person I love is Caspian. From the very beginning to the absolute end, the only person I have ever loved is him." In the past, my brain was completely fried. "Lord Biscuit, that's exactly why I let you gaslight me. Lord Biscuit, but right now I am completely awake, and I know my true feelings. Lord Biscuit, get the hell out. Lord Biscuit, whatever we had is completely dead. Lord Biscuit," the man's pupils dilated to the size of massive saucers. Lord Biscuit, his face was a mask of mind-blowing shock. Big Bisque, but a single second later, he burst into a hysterical, Joker-like cackle. "You're telling me to get out? Seraphina, Lord Biscuit. Let me give you a harsh reality check. Lord Biscuit, I didn't drive Caspian away. You did. Lord Biscuit, little Biscuit. Did you actually think I was blind to the dirty little secrets you two had? Lord Biscuit," he sneered. "He stayed faithfully by your side for 4 years. Lord Biscuit, but you kept him entirely in the shadows like a dirty, shameful secret. Lord Biscuit, the exact second I came back. Lord Biscuit, you shamelessly threw yourself right at me. The person who actually chased him away is you." The moment he dropped that massive bomb, the entire crowd gasped in collective shock. The tiny shred of calmness that had just returned to Seraphina's face instantly morphed back into a dark, raging thunderstorm. Lysander fully embraced the, if I'm going down, you're going down with me strategy. He continued his relentless toxic mockery. Caspian is brain dead. For 4 years, Lord Biscuit, he willingly played the role of your pathetic, underground side piece. Lord Biscuit. Seraphina. Lord Biscuit. You were the one who completely refused to trust him. Lord Biscuit. You literally watched him get tortured, and yet you still chose me over him. Lord Biscuit. Do you really think I drove him away? Lord Biscuit. It was you, Lord Biscuit. Seraphina's face turned a terrifying, deadly shade of black. Her fists clenched so incredibly tight that her knuckles audibly cracked. Lord Biscuit, it seems you still haven't grasped the severity of your actions. Lord Biscuit. She coldly signaled her guerrillas to pin Lysander down again and drag him away. Once they violently hauled him back to the mansion, she ordered them to lock his pathetic self in the pitch-black basement. Seraphina forced him to perfectly reenact every single agonizing torture method he had inflicted on me, except this time, the victim was himself. He was brutally forced to carry boiling hot bowls of soup. His hands were completely scalded until they were covered in massive, red, agonizing blisters, or he was forced to kneel. Kneeling for 24 hours straight, Little Biscuit. Even if he passed out, the absolute second he woke up, he had to resume kneeling. During this entire brutal process, Lord Biscuit, Seraphina didn't even bother going down to look at him once. She had far, far more critical missions to accomplish. Ever since she finally woke up to her true feelings, she swore a literal blood oath to hunt me down and win me back. And she knew her only lifeline to finding me was her brother, Declan. Seraphina marched straight up to Declan's front door and knocked aggressively. Declan forcefully yanked the door open. The second he saw his psycho of a sister, the smile on his face instantly flatlined, morphing into a look of pure, unadulterated disgust. "What the hell do you want?" he snapped. Seraphina knew. She was the absolute villain here. Her hands were overflowing with ridiculously expensive apology gifts as she forced a painfully fake smile. "Declan, I know I was totally out of line before. I'm here to beg you for a massive favor. Do you know where Caspian went? I need to track him down. I need to look him in the eyes and apologize." Declan let out a sharp, sarcastic scoff. "Oh wow, so now you suddenly remember the guy even exists? How exactly did you treat him back then? Just to protect your precious Lysander. You stabbed Caspian in the back over and over again. And now you want some kind of redemption arc? Declan, I know I screwed up colossally. I want to fix this mess. Please, just tell me where Caspian went, okay? I swear I will never let Lysander hurt him ever again. From now on, I'm going to treat him like absolute royalty. Aren't you guys literally best bros? Think about it, if Caspian and I get back together, you can hang out with him every single day." Declan aggressively threw up a hand to shut her right up. "Look, even without you in the picture, Caspian and I are still going to be best bros for life. As long as he's out there living his absolute best life, I literally do not care where he is on the globe. Sis, you traumatized the guy repeatedly, and now you think you can just hit the rewind button. Weren't you the one who literally screamed in my face that Lysander was my future brother-in-law?" Seraphina completely choked on her own words. She stood there paralyzed, unable to utter a single syllable. Declan naturally had a fiery, chaotic personality. Just thinking about all the horrific injustice I had to suffer made his blood absolutely boil. Seeing Seraphina rendered completely speechless, his sarcastic roasting just leveled up. "Just for Lysander, you didn't just slap Caspian in the face. You literally slapped your own flesh and blood. You hit me, sis, and now you're standing here crying my bad. Don't you think the lag on your little realization is a bit too severe? Let me drop a massive reality check on you right now. Caspian is currently living a fabulous life overseas." Hearing that sentence, Seraphina's entire body violently swayed. She took a massive, shuddering breath and actually lowered her usually arrogant head right in front of her little brother. "Declan, I genuinely know I was dead wrong. I have already brutally punished Lysander. If you don't believe me, I can drag you down to the basement to see the exhibit myself. Just tell Caspian. Please tell him I know I was an absolute monster. Caspian loved me for 8 years. 8 entire years. I know he will definitely forgive me." The more she spoke, the faster she rambled, almost like a demon was chasing her. Her eye sockets slowly turned a desperate, teary shade of red, but listening to her psychotic rambling, Declan just found the whole thing hilariously pathetic. This was the very first time he looked at his own flesh and blood sister and realized she was an absolute clown. "Oh, so you actually do know he loved you for 8 years? Then how the hell did you treat him, huh? You treated Caspian like a human flashlight, like a convenient little tool, like some pathetic stray dog you could just whistle for and then kick away into the dirt. You were the one who single-handedly incinerated every last drop of the love he had for you. And now that he finally ghosted you, you magically realize you messed up, sis? He is a human being. He actually feels pain. Listening to her brother's brutal verbal beatdown, the toxic regret festering in Seraphina's heart finally reached critical mass. Her voice was completely shredded and raw. With bloodshot eyes, she literally dropped to her knees. "Declan, please, just let me see Caspian one more time. Just once. If he seriously refuses to forgive me, I swear I will literally never, ever bother him again." Since the very day she was born, the arrogant Seraphina had never groveled to a single living soul. This was an absolute first. She actually dropped to her knees right in front of her little brother, and it was all just for me. The exact same man who had finally escaped her toxic grip. Declan was completely mind-blown. He never in a million years expected his arrogantly toxic sister could actually sink to this pathetic level. But he absolutely refused to betray his best bro just because his sister was shedding some tears. He gritted his teeth in sheer frustration. "Fine, I will ask him for you. If Caspian is actually willing to look at your face again, I'll drop you his coordinates." Seraphina, who legitimately thought she was heading for a total game over, instantly lit up with a spark of desperate hope. She violently nodded her head. Declan shot me a text right then, but because of the massive time zone difference, he told his psycho sister to just go home and wait. He promised to ping her the second I replied, but Seraphina absolutely refused to budge. She stubbornly camped out right in her brother's living room, forcing herself to sleep on his couch. The tiniest pin drop would violently jolt her awake, desperately praying it was a message from me. It wasn't until late the next evening that Declan finally got a ping on his phone. "Fine, I will meet her once. Just a few short words from me," but they injected pure, liquid adrenaline straight into Seraphina's veins. Caspian was actually willing to see her. In her delusional mind, this meant there was still a fighting chance for them. Fueled by pure, psychotic excitement, Seraphina instantly booked the very next flight out. Declan just grabbed her arm, frowning in serious disapproval. "Sis, at least sleep for 24 hours before you fly across the world. You literally haven't slept in days. Since Caspian already agreed to see you, he is definitely not going to stand you up." But Seraphina violently shook off his hand. "I literally cannot wait another second. During the entire time he has been gone, I have been hallucinating about him every single second of the day. I just need to see his face right now." Her expression was terrifyingly soft, completely obsessive. The whole vibe made Declan incredibly uncomfortable and confused. Watching his sister sprint away like a total maniac, he couldn't help but let out a heavy sigh. "If you knew this was going to happen, why did you act like such a monster in the first place, sis?" But Seraphina didn't hear a single word of his philosophical sigh. Her entire brain was 100% hijacked by the thought of Caspian. Just the mere thought of seeing Caspian soon sent her heart rate rocketing straight into the stratosphere. Sitting on the plane, she couldn't calm down enough to even catch a wink of sleep. How has Caspian been living overseas this past month? Did he lose weight? Is he totally broke? Stranded all alone in a foreign country? He must be suffering so much. Thinking of me, her ice-cold heart miraculously melted into absolute mush. Her brain was entirely occupied by my face. Back in the very beginning, I was just a green, hopelessly naive kid. I genuinely thought my secret crush was flawless, but she saw right through it instantly. Still, her brain was so infected with Lysander, she completely ignored my very existence. Even after that, incredibly chaotic, purely accidental night together, she never once considered me a real option. Who would have ever thought that I, the guy who always walked on eggshells around her, would suddenly confess my feelings to her? She violently rejected my heart. But she definitely didn't reject my young, energetic body. We entangled ourselves in every single corner of the city. I was incredibly obedient. I never pulled any shady stunts for cash like those other gold-digging guys. This was fantastic for her. It perfectly aligned with her toxic preferences, and that was the exact reason she silently permitted my existence for so damn long. If Lysander hadn't made his overly dramatic return, she had actually genuinely considered just maintaining this completely messed up dynamic with me forever. So, when exactly did she fall in love with me? Was it when she saw how hard I hustled every day? When she noticed my flawless attention to every little detail? Or was it when she bathed in my pathetic, endless adoration? Seraphina couldn't even pinpoint it herself. Those 4 years just flew by in a hyperspeed blur. Before she could even process what was happening, she had already been completely domesticated by me. But she realized it way, way too late. And that's exactly why she forced me to leave. But things are going to be completely different now. She had fully rebooted her brain. As long as I was willing to forgive her, she would literally do whatever it takes to win me back. She would never force me to be her secret bed warmer ever again. Instead, she would proudly and loudly announce our relationship to the entire world. She would marry me. She would love me with everything she had for the rest of her life. She would spend her entire existence compensating me for the catastrophic trauma she dragged me through. Just fantasizing about me returning to her side, Seraphina couldn't stop this creepy, obsessive smile from spreading across her face. A euphoric wave of toxic happiness flooded her chest, making her insanely desperate for the exact moment we finally met. After an 8-hour flight, the plane finally touched down. Seraphina sprinted like an absolute track star toward our agreed-upon location. I had set the meeting point at this quiet local cafe. She practically shoved the door open. The wind chimes aggressively jingled as she burst in. I was just sitting quietly in a corner booth. With just one glance, she locked right onto me. It had only been a month, but to her, it felt like a torturous, agonizing decade. Suffering through severe withdrawal and now finally seeing my face again, she actually felt like she was hallucinating. Back in the past, because I was strictly playing the secretary role, I was always trapped inside a stiff, corporate suit. Even when we played spicy games in private, my overall vibe was still strictly professional. But right now, I was just wearing a chill, casual outfit. My messy bangs fell casually over my forehead. The sight forcefully transported her straight back in time, back to the green, naive boy who used to secretly obsess over her. She totally froze like a buffering video for a few seconds. Then, she practically jogged over, flashing an incredibly desperate smile. Caspian, long time no see. She violently suppressed the totally feral urge to just tackle me into a massive hug. She stared at my face with starving, greedy eyes. Yeah, let's just keep this short. I only agreed to see you today so we could permanently close the book on our history. I have absolutely zero interest in catching up. I took a slow, detached sip of my coffee. Just as I was about to drop the final hammer, she frantically interrupted me. Wait, I know exactly what you're going to say. Everything in the past was entirely my fault. My brain was completely broken, and I just didn't realize my true feelings. That's why I stood by and let Lysander traumatize you. Caspian, I finally realize it now. I love you. The person I truly love is only you. She practically word vomited her entire confession in one single breath. Her eyes were sparkling with this intense, psychotic hope. She was desperately waiting for my romantic reaction. However, my facial expression remained a complete flatline. I just gave her a dead, totally emotionless half-smile. Seraphina. You're way too late. Whether it's your garbage apology or this sudden confession of love. If you're finally done delivering your little monologue, I'm leaving. I don't think we have a single thing left to discuss. Instantly, her face mutated into sheer, utter panic. Her knee-jerk reaction was to violently grab my hand. She genuinely looked like she was having a massive panic attack. No, please don't do this, Caspian. We still have a future together. I've already ruthlessly dealt with Lysander. As long as you just come back to me, I can give you literally anything. It's been 4 whole years. You can't throw it away just because of one bad month. Did you really just magically stop loving me? I know you're completely furious right now. If you want to hit me or curse me out, just do it. I entirely deserve it, Caspian. I am begging you. Please, just come back to me, okay? But I violently ripped my hand straight out of her desperate grip. My tone was chillingly flat. Exactly. Because of that one single month, I finally saw your true ugly colors. I don't love you anymore, Seraphina, and I am absolutely never coming back. I wish you and Lysander a long, miserable life together. Dropping that absolute bombshell, I stood right up and prepared to walk out the door. Her brain absolutely could not compute this outcome. In her delusional mind, she thought my love for her was so toxically deep that it was literally carved into my bones. How could I possibly just flip a switch and turn it off? An unprecedented, apocalyptic wave of pure terror crashed right into her. When she first found out I packed up and left, she coped by telling herself I was still secretly obsessed with her. But now, staring dead into my eyes, she heard me explicitly say I felt absolutely nothing. In that exact millisecond, her heart felt like it was being filleted open by a rusty knife. She clamped onto my hand with a literal death grip, absolutely refusing to let me go. Her usually arrogant, untouchable posture was violently shaking. She threw whatever dignity she had left straight into the trash. Her voice completely cracked with pathetic, desperate sobbing. Caspian, please don't do this to me. I genuinely know I acted like a total monster. Just give me one single chance for a redemption arc, Caspian. But I didn't look back. Not even for a second. I just kept walking, completely vanishing from her line of sight. She sat totally paralyzed in that cafe like a glitching NPC, right until the staff literally had to kick her out at closing time. She had absolutely no clue what to do next. Her core was overflowing with a toxic, radioactive agony. And the more it hurt, the more aggressively it hit her just how astronomically important I was to her entire existence. And yet, she had literally tossed me straight into the garbage. If Lysander hadn't made his dramatic little comeback, if she had just rebooted her brain 1 second earlier and realized she actually loved me, if she hadn't constantly disappointed me. A million what-ifs violently swirled in her brain. But I knew she had officially reached a total dead end. She wandered like a literal zombie through the dark, foreign streets. Crash! A massive clap of thunder hit, and a torrential downpour instantly flooded the entire city. Pedestrians shrieked and sprinted for cover, but Seraphina had absolutely nowhere left to go. She dragged her heavy feet through the brutal storm, endlessly chanting my name like some cursed mantra, getting completely soaked down to the bone. Suddenly, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She snatched it up with desperate, clinging hope. It was a text from Declan. "Sis, just come home." Staring dead at those 4 words, she felt a crushing apocalyptic wave of weakness. Her and me. How did our story mutate into this absolute tragedy? She dropped right to her knees in the middle of the torrential rain, wailing and screaming up at the sky like a dying animal. The deafening roar of the rain drowned out everything, including the sound of her shattered, pathetic heart. She stumbled and dragged her half-dead body until she reached a familiar apartment building. The front door was securely locked. This was my exact address. Only by standing right here could her rotting heart feel even a microscopic crumb of comfort. She absolutely did not dare to knock. Instead, she just curled up into a pathetic little ball on my front welcome mat. She hadn't slept a wink in days, and she was rapidly catching hypothermia from the freezing storm. She actually managed to pass out into a feverish, wild hallucination. In her desperate dream, I miraculously forgave her. I followed her all the way back to the country, just like the good old days. But the massive plot twist was, in the dream, she promised to never betray me again. She instantly launched a massive PR campaign proudly announcing our relationship to the world. She even dropped down to one knee and actually proposed to me. With tears welling up in my eyes, I tackled her into a massive hug, sobbing that I had finally waited for this exact moment. Seraphina smiled a disgustingly sweet, hopeful smile. It honestly felt like she had finally grabbed hold of her true happy ending. And then, she completely lost consciousness on my freezing porch. When her heavy eyelids finally fluttered open again, she was instantly hit with a skull-cracking migraine. Her entire body felt like it was heavily encased in solid concrete. She painfully forced her eyes open and stared up at a totally unfamiliar ceiling, desperately trying to drag herself out of the bed. Suddenly, a smooth, calm voice drifted over through the silence. "Don't move. It's me." Hearing that one specific voice, Seraphina threw all logic straight out the window. She bolted upright like an awakened zombie and violently tackled me into a bone-crushing hug, clinging to me like a starving dragon hoarding its lost treasure. "Caspian, did you finally forgive me? I know I was a complete monster. I will spend the rest of my miserable life making it up to you. Caspian, you have to believe me. I was so incredibly wrong. I literally cannot survive in this world without you." She aggressively word-vomited all of this while sobbing uncontrollably into my chest. A massive tsunami of toxic regret threatened to completely drown her. I just sighed. "Seraphina, hit the brakes. I only dragged you inside for Declan's sake. If you literally dropped dead on my porch, he would be completely and utterly traumatized." I scowled, violently peeling myself out of her suffocating grip. It was only then that Seraphina finally focused her blurry, tear-filled eyes on my face. My eyes held absolutely zero trace of love, only pure, unfiltered disgust. That exact, icy glare stabbed her right in the soul. Her face drained to the color of a fresh corpse. Her hands just froze, hovering in midair. She stared at me like a glitching robot, gazing at the one person she loved the most, but could absolutely never ever have again. Radioactive sorrow completely infected her nervous system. She rasped out in a shredded, broken voice, "Caspian." I didn't offer a single syllable in response. My eyes were like Arctic ice. "I already called Declan. He is flying out here to retrieve you. Stop stalking me. Without you in my life, I am living an absolute dream over here. Let the past stay dead in the past. From the exact second you chose Lysander, we were officially cancelled." Her voice grew more agonizing with every word. She stared intensely into my face. We were physically so close, yet cosmically, impossibly far away. So far away that she could never reach me again. Do we seriously have zero chance left? She looked at me with the absolute last, pathetic drop of hope. I finally looked her dead in the eye and delivered my final verdict, word by agonizing word. Yes, we have absolutely zero chance left. It felt like 10,000 rusty arrows just impaled her chest. Seraphina's heart was in so much agony, she genuinely wished she would just expire right there. She desperately tried to reach out and touch my face, just one last time, but even that pathetic micro-wish was ruthlessly dodged by me. Seraphina's eyes turned violently red. Tears spilled out like a broken faucet. Not long after, Declan arrived. The second he got my call, he basically teleported over here. Caspian. My facial expression instantly softened. Declan, you made it. We sat together and shot the breeze for a bit. When it was finally time to part ways, Declan couldn't suppress his massive guilt. My bad, Caspian. I shouldn't have been such a softie and let my psycho sister track you down. I caused you so much unnecessary drama. I just patted him on the shoulder. Don't stress it. Even if you didn't drop the location pin, Seraphina would have hacked the Pentagon to find me anyway. Ripping off the band-aid is way better than a slow bleed. Using this chance to finally shut her down for good was a solid move. Despite my totally chill attitude, Declan still felt incredibly guilty. He turned his head to look at the tragic, pathetic figure standing a few feet away, who was desperately staring at me but forcing herself to hold back. He just couldn't resist dropping the ultimate question. Caspian, hypothetically speaking. I mean purely hypothetically. If Lysander had never respawned, would you have ended up with my sister? This was the exact answer Seraphina was also dying to know. I just flashed a very light, very chill smile. I actually brainstormed that exact question before, but after surviving that completely cursed month, I reached total enlightenment. Even if Lysander didn't drop out of the sky, some other random NPC would have. Seraphina's so-called love for me is literally just a toxic byproduct of her losing me and panicking. I smiled with the aura of a monk who just achieved nirvana. So, no. Nobody asked me to elaborate, mostly because everyone already knew the brutal truth. Declan dragged the soulless hollow shell of Seraphina back to their home country. The Lu corporate empire had hemorrhaged an insane amount of cash recently. Seraphina literally lacked the mental bandwidth to run a lemonade stand, let alone an entire company. She had absolutely no choice but to temporarily dump the CEO chair onto Declan. You really had to pity this poor guy. He just got back from studying abroad and instantly had to swallow the apocalyptic corporate mess that his sister left behind. Thank God he actually majored in economics and management, so he wasn't flying completely blind. But right as Declan was taking the reins, he threw his sister a pity bone and tossed her a thick file of photos. While you were busy stalking him overseas, I did some snooping of my own. Take a look. Seraphina flipped it open. It was an entire portfolio dedicated to exposing Lysander. Declan had truly dug up all the receipts. During his years overseas, Lysander didn't study for a single second. Instead, he spent his entire existence playing the field. He was simultaneously being kept as a sugar baby by multiple wealthy foreign women. There were even several women who had to get abortions because of him. He had long mutated away from the innocent angel that Seraphina remembered. Speaking of which, what exactly did he even look like back in the day? Seraphina zoned out for a solid minute, only to realize her brain had completely auto-deleted his original face. A 10-year gap, followed by a sudden reunion. That green, naive first love feeling had long been completely eroded into dust by time. Right now, the very millisecond she closed her eyes, only my face aggressively spammed her brain, either smiling or looking tragically sad. It was so obnoxiously, heartbreakingly vivid. It forcefully yanked at her heartstrings. But after the next 10 years pass, would she really be able to auto-delete me, just like she did to Lysander? A crushing wave of pathetic hesitation and absolute misery flooded her chest. But the ultimate final boss, who caused this entire apocalyptic mess, was literally her own damn self. She knew damn well Lysander was acting like a rabid dog, but blinded by her delusional nostalgia and fake claims of true love, she had actually shoved me away for a creature like him. Looking down at those scandalous photos now, her heart didn't feel a single microscopic ripple. It was as if her heart had officially flatlined and died. Thanks, Declan. I won't keep you babysitting me for much longer, she rasped out. Then, her brain magically remembered something. She shot her brother a psychotic little smile. Almost forgot. I still owe you a debt. Saying that, she raised her hand and delivered a brutal, 5-star slap directly to her own face. Smack. Her cheek instantly swelled up like a balloon. It jump-scared Declan so hard, he nearly leaped right out of his skin. Sis, what the hell are you doing? Seraphina swallowed the bitter, metallic taste of blood in her mouth. I slapped you before. My bad. Consider this, my refund. Declan's eyebrows tied themselves into a frustrated knot. He had absolutely no idea what dialogue option to pick here. His hand twitched, wanting to reach out, but he quickly aborted the mission. Finally, he exhaled a massive, heavy sigh. Whatever. As long as you stop acting like a total psycho from now on, we're good. Who knows, maybe the next Caspian will eventually respawn. When that time comes, you better not fumble the bag again. Declan waved his hand, offering a chill, easy smile. Seraphina didn't utter a single word. She just silently watched her brother's back fade away into the distance. She didn't want to ruin his optimistic mood, mostly because every living organism on Earth knew there would absolutely never, ever be another me. A wave of radioactive sourness surged up her throat, and she aggressively choked it back down. Grabbing the stack of scandalous photos, Seraphina marched straight down to the basement. During this entire time, Lysander had been tortured to the absolute brink of insanity. He was starved and severely sleep-deprived. Every single atrocity he ever committed against me had now been refunded to him with a 1,000% interest rate. He sat there, violently shivering in the darkest corner of the basement. When the heavy door creaked open and light flooded the room, his fried brain couldn't even process what was happening. It wasn't until Seraphina walked right up to him that his brain finally rebooted. Like a drowning man spotting a life raft, he aggressively crawled over and clung to her legs. "Seraphina, I messed up. Please forgive me. I swear on my life, I will never, ever interrupt you and Caspian again. I'll pack my bags and disappear to the ends of the earth. I will never pollute your eyesight again. Please, just let me go. I genuinely know I was a total monster." The man was simultaneously begging for his life and violently sobbing. He looked like an absolute tragic disaster. Seraphina didn't say a word. She scanned his face with microscopic precision. It had entirely lost its pure, innocent beauty. It was now just a twisted mask of endless greed and toxic entitlement. Why the hell did she sacrifice the most important person in her universe for this pathetic thing? The very second that thought crossed her mind, Seraphina's rage meter completely maxed out. She wanted to toss Lysander straight into a wood chipper, but Declan and I were absolutely right. At the end of the day, she was the idiot who let herself get brainwashed. Lysander was just a parasite, feeding off her psychotic favoritism. She forced her heart rate to drop and casually tossed the stack of photos onto the cold floor. Lysander's eyes locked onto the contents. His pupils violently shrank in sheer terror. These receipts were the exact dark history he wanted permanently nuked from existence. The literally only reason he had crawled back to this country was because his sugar baby career overseas had completely imploded. He never calculated that someone would actually dig up his grave. He launched into a full-blown panic attack. His face morphed into a mask of catastrophic denial. No, 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 this isn't me. Seraphina, you have to believe me. The guy in these photos isn't me. This is 100% photoshopped. Someone is trying to assassinate my character. It's Caspian. It's definitely him, right? He didn't want you to forgive me. So, he aggressively fabricated this fake news to trigger you. He violently gripped his own head. He continued his psychotic, frantic rambling. He looked like an absolute lunatic who had completely snapped. I wasn't like this overseas at all. I got accepted into an Ivy League university. I landed a massive 6-figure job. I even had a gorgeous girlfriend who worshipped me. None of this garbage ever happened. It's all fake. This is not my canon timeline. He babbled and babbled until he completely broke down and started wailing. In the very beginning, when he first went overseas, he lived like an absolute rock star, riding purely on his pretty boy face. He locked down several wealthy sugar mommies. They eagerly swiped their endless black cards for him. No matter what chaotic crimes he committed, they always paid to make it disappear. But eventually, the karma caught up. His sugar mommies realized he was just toxic trash and dumped him. He completely failed to secure his diploma, forcing him to buy a fake degree from some sketchy diploma mill. He got rejected from every single job interview. The guy couldn't even afford to feed himself. So, he officially turned to selling his body. Very quickly, his trashy reputation went totally viral in the local expat community. He completely lost his footing. With nowhere else to go, he had absolutely no choice but to tuck his tail between his legs and run crawling back to the motherland. At first, he was insanely smug, thinking Seraphina was still stupidly waiting for him. But right now, he finally realized that the universe always collects its debts. Lysander instantly dropped to his knees, sobbing like an absolute banshee, spamming pathetic apologies, and aggressively bowing his head straight to the floor. Seraphina just watched the entire circus with a completely dead, cold, and emotionless face. She just stared at him until Lysander ran completely out of stamina. Then, she finally opened her mouth. "Get out." This massive plot twist of a response made Lysander's eyes practically pop out of his skull. He mumbled in absolute disbelief. "Wait. What? Seraphina. What did you just say?" Seraphina hit replay. I said, "Get out, Lysander." From this exact second forward, we have zero connection. I used to love you, but the lag was just way too severe. Right now, my heart belongs to someone else." Hearing this brutal final verdict, Lysander didn't know whether to laugh like the Joker or cry. He didn't even know where he was supposed to spawn next. Seraphina spun around and walked right away. She had completely stopped caring about his pathetic existence. The basement door was left wide open. There were no more massive gorillas, forcing him to endure endless torture. But suddenly, it hit him facing the apocalyptic. Unknown future was infinitely more terrifying than being locked down here. A very long time later, Lysander slowly dragged himself off the cold floor, stumbling and staggering around like a brainless zombie. He walked out and permanently exited the Lu mansion. Nobody knows where the hell he went, and absolutely nobody cares. After Seraphina fully rebooted her mental health, she snatched that CEO crown right back. Declan let out a massive sigh of relief. Ever since he was a kid, he had absolutely zero desire to run the family's corporate empire. He had his own elite dreams and side quests to pursue. 3 years later, Declan received a text message from me, telling him his best bro was officially getting married, and I was summoning him to be my groomsman. Declan was so incredibly hyped, he instantly dropped every single corporate file right on his desk. He speed ran, booking a flight to come over. But when Seraphina heard the massive news drop from her brother's mouth, her hand physically glitched. A second later, she lowered her eyes, totally faking an incredibly chill and unbothered tone. "He's locking it down that fast." Over the past year, she had constantly stalked my life updates through her brother. She knew full well I had a fiancé I was absolutely madly in love with. But facing the brutal reality that I was actually getting married, Seraphina's vision instantly blurred. She couldn't even read the boring corporate jargon on the important documents sitting right in front of her. She heard the audio from Declan's phone speaker. My warm, chill voice drifted right through. "Yeah, man, it's about time. I finally rolled a natural 20 and found the absolute perfect person. I just don't feel like waiting anymore." Declan was aggressively packing his suitcase while talking on the phone. "True that. But wait, are you guys permanently setting up a home base overseas? You're really going to make me fly 14 hours every single time I want to hang out? You heartless bastard, you better fly back and visit me." He roasted me with a massive grin on his face. He quickly zipped up his luggage, turned his head, and waved at Seraphina. "I'm out. Catch you later, sis." Seraphina didn't say a single word back. She just waited there until Declan was completely out of sight. His back faded away. The audio from his phone call was completely gone. She finally, slowly, dropped her ridiculously expensive fountain pen onto the desk. She pressed the heel of her palm hard against her forehead, and the heavy tears finally spilled over. Her heart was trapped in absolute, apocalyptic agony. So, this is the exact, crushing feeling of watching the man you are obsessively in love with marry someone else. She violently trembled, completely unable to hold back those radioactive, agonizing tears from falling. She let out a violently suppressed, pathetic sob. Another year passed by. Declan also got married. I flew back to the motherland. Fully honoring our sacred bro code, I proudly stood as his groomsman. Seraphina hadn't seen my face in an absolute eternity. She desperately tried to micromanage her own facial expressions, but her eyeballs were completely magnetically locked onto me. She was absolutely terrified of even breathing too hard and waking up from the dream. After the wedding ceremony fully wrapped up, Seraphina escorted her brother around for the toasts. When they finally reached my table, Declan flashed a massive, excited grin. "Caspian, long time no see, bro." Seraphina offered a flawlessly chill nod. "Long time no see, Caspian." She extended her hand and gently clinked her champagne glass against mine. That crisp clink violently echoed deep inside her incredibly chaotic heart. She had an entire encyclopedia of things she desperately wanted to say. Things like, "You've leveled up so much. How are your stats looking? Are you truly happy?" That pathetic, lingering question in my head hit a massive brick wall the second a beautiful woman walked up. It was my wife. Seraphina, my ex, tried offering her a glass of champagne. I immediately stepped in. My bad. She's pregnant. She can't touch a drop of alcohol, so I'll tank this one for her." I honestly couldn't stop a sickeningly sweet, ear-to-ear smile from completely taking over my face. My buddy Declan was standing right there, absolutely mind-blown. "Bro, you're seriously spawning a mini Caspian? Why didn't you drop the bombshell sooner? Do you even consider me a brother anymore?" I quickly threw my hands up in defense. "Hey, it's only been 1 month, man. I wanted to wait until the RNG stabilized before making a huge announcement. It is way too early right now." I laughed, but Declan wasn't having it. He instantly called permanent dibs on the ultimate godfather title. Beside me, my wife looked up with eyes just overflowing with pure, gentle, undeniable love. I gazed back at her, totally overwhelmed by a helpless, absolute sense of happiness. The four of us stood there in a tight little circle. But Seraphina was the only one stuck entirely outside our invisible barrier, looking exactly like a random NPC. Turns out, the absolute best ending to our toxic past was just becoming total strangers. Seraphina just stared blankly at my disgustingly happy face, forced to watch my wife and I lean so intimately against each other. You could practically see her heart going through this heavy, dull, rhythmic kind of sheer agony. She slowly raised her glass, locked eyes with me, and muttered, "Congratulations. You finally found your true happiness." After dropping that heavy line, she tilted her head back and chugged the entire glass in one single gulp. For the absolute first time in her entire life, she finally realized that champagne could taste incredibly bitter and deeply toxic. With her pride shattered, she silently ghosted our table, refusing to ruin our perfect vibe for even one more second. A soft breeze suddenly swept through the venue, and when I casually lifted my head, I realized the exact spot she had been standing in was completely, utterly empty. I spaced out for just a fraction of a second, letting the past go, and then I just casually shook my head. None of that mattered anymore. Because right now, the absolute most important people in my entire universe are standing right beside me.